Alright, we're gonna get started again here. It's almost 4 o'clock. It's still May 13th. Part 1 was interesting to say the least. For rinse and repeat part 1, that's what we're reading today. That's what I'm reading. My multiple personalities inside of my head. All the voices inside me reading together as one unit. One unified bipolar consciousness. Excuse me. And I'm pretty sure I laid out all the major themes and the major influences in part 1 when I spoke for about almost 3 hours, I think. The one little anecdote I didn't mention was from Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets is probably the most knowledgeable person in the world. Is that a fair assessment of the mycelium networks and mushroom consciousness and all that good stuff? Paul Stamets, let's see what it says on Google, so I give him credit for this. But Paul Stamets is I don't know how to say that word, mycologist, I think so. And entrepreneur, yeah, he's wrote a bunch of books on this stuff. Fungi, had a documentary, I think, on Netflix based on his research and maybe even included him. Yeah, I don't know a lot about this guy's story, but I'm basing this, I brought him up because of what I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast. This was years ago. Stamets was on Joe Rogan, because, Rogan's into that stuff too. And Stamets was more talking about his own experiences when he first was growing up. He had this really bad stutter. One day, I think he took a bunch of... Nah, he was up in a tree, that's right. This is before his interest in mushrooms, I think. I forget the story completely, but he was up in a tree during this crazy thunderstorm, and he kind of had this life-changing moment, and he might have taken mushrooms at this point. I think so, and he was kind of saying he lost his stutter like soon after that happened. It was a major life-changing event for him. I'm sure I'm getting this story somewhat wrong, but it's something to do with that. But it plays a part in this story. It led me to create one of the plot lines that we'll get into later or soon now. So if this series ever becomes a reality and I make a shit ton of money, Paul Stamets, you're definitely getting a writing credit for this one, because that was a big part of this plot. It led me to develop a more adventurous type of suspenseful part of this story in the maybe the next 10 pages or so. We'll get to it. And yeah, maybe there's more I could talk about with this Paul Stamets guy. Really interesting dude. Look him up. He's all over the place. If you're into mushroom stuff, psychedelics and all that, mycelium consciousness stuff, and you probably have heard of him, Paul Stamets, Stamets. So yeah, he told this story on Rogan. He took a bunch of psilocybin during a storm. He was up in a tree, and while he was watching the lightning, he had this amazing experience with the power of nature. In a nutshell, I think that's what I summarized it as. And he believes that's what led him to lose his stuttering. And really enjoyed his interview. I'll probably watch it again or listen to it again. Well, it is a video, yeah. You could watch him on Joe Rogan. Just go on whatever you get your podcast and search for Paul Stamets. He's all over the place. So when I was trying to put Lamb and Bew's story together, that was a big part of this. So I got to give him credit, and Joe Rogan as well, since that one story led me to create a more epic type of a story. Because so far, where have we gotten to? We met all the characters, and we've met all the characters. let's remind ourselves so I can remind myself as well. There's Lamb. He's the old kind of hippie shamanic guy of the family, the grandfather of Bew, who's the 12-year-old girl who's kind of the alpha child. Then there's Blad, who's the 16-year-old kid, male, and he's kind of an oafy, shy, little bit dim-witted trope. Sorry, Blad. Your name just led me to that personality type, I guess. Then there's Callum, who's the real head of this tribe, the 7-person tribe. Callum is like the alpha. He has the long spear. He carries the big stick in this story, if you want to look at it like that. And, he doesn't have bad intentions. He's just trying to protect the tribe. He's the alpha. And who knows what they've dealt with in the past to survive this long. Again, this is taking place thousands of years in the future when there's no more cities, there's no more human language. All that shit got incinerated in some apocalyptic event. But life still continues and humanity still survived through all that shit. And now we're following this family of 7. And yeah, I said DreamWorks Crudes, even though I never saw it. I'm sure if I go watch it right after this, I'm sure I'll notice things that I'll connect to this story or get inspired by new devices that they use. I don't even know if they use real language in Crudes by DreamWorks. I don't know. I have to look it up or watch the movie at some point. I'm a big animation fan. I really haven't said that, but even though I talked a little shit about Disney earlier, because in the 40s and 50s, they were kind of overtly racist about shit. They had a crow, and I think that's the most glaring example that I could find. There was cartoon crow characters, and one of them was named Jim Crow. I don't know if somebody thought that was funny, like, hey, let's have a bunch of crows, and one of them's Jim Crow. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just found out today. I remember people talking about it in the past, but I never knew that was a real thing. Like, is there anything to explain why that happened? Why did Disney have because I'm a fan of Disney, but, I'm a fan of the Catholic Church to some degree, but when shit happens, you have to call people out. It shouldn't be termed as a witch hunt, but it should be like a lesson. Don't cover shit up. People in power, whatever organization you're from, don't cover shit up and don't take your power like you think you're holier than thou like that. As you're teaching everyone else not to be holier than thou. Why did Disney have a character named Jim Crow? So I went to Disneyland as a kid. I'm not saying it's a bad corporation. People think Walt Disney was like a Nazi or something. I don't know how true that is. The character named Jim Crow is Disney's 1941 in the movie Dumbo, 1941. And yeah, it was just named that because they were portraying African American stereotypes, reflecting the racial attitudes of that entertainment era. So should Disney be completely banned because of this one? Well, there's probably more than one example. So, but yeah, I know it's a terrible representation. I'm sure Disney tried to delete. I don't know. I guess you could probably still buy that movie. Maybe they edited it out. Like, it's a tricky thing, but that's like outright. That's just racism to be racist. It's not like a subtle taking out of context type of thing. That's just overtly racist to be racist. There's a couple Always Sunny in Philadelphia episodes, and that's like one of my favorite shows of the last decade or so. Always Sunny, if they come up with a new season, like, I have to buy it. It's just one of those shows for me. And you could tell I mention that show all the time. There's a couple episodes that Amazon actually canceled, and I got pretty angry about it. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was Danny DeVito in blackface, which, yeah, whatever it is. I don't know if that's what it was, because sometimes they do stuff like that. They had an episode called "The Gang Turns Black," and it's a great episode. It's like based on The Wiz, that Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, right? I never saw it, The Wiz, but I know it exists. I think I actually had the record of it, or maybe it was something else, Xanadu by the Bee Gees. But sometimes you would find that soundtrack at Goodwill's, and it looked kind of interesting, but I don't know if I bought it or not. But yes, Always Sunny had maybe 2 or 3 episodes that got actually removed from Amazon, and I was more angry that I bought all this stuff and now they're removing it from my own personal library. That was my main contention. Like, they're telling me, you have to be offended by this, so we're going to cancel it. We're going to take it off your personal library. I thought that was a wrong approach. If Amazon was offended and they thought they would get in trouble, or any company, I'm not singling out Amazon, or I'm not singling out Disney, but they're good examples because these are huge corporations worth billions and billions of dollars. If a company like Amazon, a streaming service, they think there's something controversial in a comedy show, Danny DeVito with blackface, if that's what it was. Maybe I should look that up so I don't accuse people of doing stuff they didn't do. Why did Amazon remove, like, this is a worthy thing to talk about, since I want to be a writer. I want to work for other writers, or for a company that produces entertainment, and I'm sure they have conversations like this. Why does my opinion matter? It doesn't, but I have to talk about something. Why did Amazon remove Always Sunny episodes? Let's see if that works. Always Sunny episodes. Because I know that there are episodes that do that. Lethal Weapon, which is hysterical. One of the people will play Danny Glover. Yeah, I don't know if it was Danny DeVito, but it is due to the use of blackface and other offensive caricatures. All right, these episodes were removed. America's Next Top Patty's Billboard Model Contest. I don't even remember that. So I think it's one of the characters plays other races. Episode 6-9 had blackface in it. Martina Martinez, I guess that was one of the characters playing a Latino woman. The Gang Makes Lethal Weapon 6, that got banned because that had blackface. And then D-Day got banned. I don't know if all of these are still banned, though. See, if I was working for Amazon, I would have said, all right, if we're getting feedback that these are offensive, we'll stop selling them. But I felt violated. Like, they went into my personal library and just snatched things out of my collection that I already paid for. And that stuff, yeah, maybe it offends certain people, but this is a comedy, man. Is it okay for me to do blackface? Like, go do stand-up comedy and pretend I'm talking like a black dude? I would say probably not. I'd probably get, like, banned or some shit. Or if I did like I don't know, or the other one was like a Latino woman, Puerto Rican or some shit like that. What if I dress up like an Irish person? That's in there too. Well, I guess because they are Irish, they're allowed to make fun of themselves. I guess that's the justification. But I started talking about this, where does comedy extend its reach? And I'm not the right person to speak because I'm not in the industry. If that was something that still occurred, would I support a show like that if they were doing it to be overtly racist? But if you watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia or similar shows like that, they're not doing that to offend people or whatever. They're doing it to make a kind of social commentary on things. There's another episode, and I don't want to talk about this too long because it's a way longer, way more complicated conversation where you shouldn't just have one white dude talking about it. But there's one episode where they show like looters in New Orleans during Katrina, And Frank is asking Dee, what do these people look like, looters or riot? And Dee's like, no, they're not looters. They need water. They need food. They're just trying to survive. And then he shows the LA riots. And he's like, what about these people? Are these looters? And she's like, yes, these are looters. And he's trying to make the connection. Like, you're just saying that because these are black people stealing shit from electronic stores. And then Dee was like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with they're stealing televisions. They're not stealing meat or bread or produce. There's a difference between people trying to survive. They don't have food or water during a major hurricane where the government doesn't seem to give a shit. Or a big riot where people are just letting their rage out and stealing televisions. There's a difference between that. Like, so would that be termed offensive? Like that type of a look at... The reason I brought that up, I think, is because it demonstrates what they're trying to do in that show sometimes, just to show the bullshit sometimes that can what's the word I'm thinking of? That can permeate into a conversation that really doesn't have any credence or anything. It's not a black or white thing. It's not really a racial thing. It's just a logic thing. And the problem with censorship and stuff like that, and I'm totally not even against Amazon removing the episodes. If they think it's offensive, they have the right to do it. But after you buy it, that's what got me pissed off. Like, I didn't buy this show because people did blackface. I bought it because it's a comedy, and I really enjoy the stories and type of sense of humor. It would be like somebody coming into my DVD collection when I used to have that and like saying, all right, we don't think this is acceptable in society anymore. We're going to smash this DVD and delete it from the history books. Like, it's similar to that. Like, how can you do that after you bought something? You can't erase a piece of art. So I don't agree with that. Those are opportunities to discuss stuff to me. Like, I'm sure they have. I'm sure the people of Always Sunny have commented on shit like that, about certain episodes like that. Because, yeah, they remade Lethal Weapon, and those are some of the funniest episodes. Even if they do implement blackface, because they need one of the characters to play Danny Glover. I don't know how they really get away with it, or how do they justify it, because, you know, that's a big no-no when it comes to the entertainment industry. You know you're going to get shit for doing something like that, but like, I don't want to speak for anyone on that show, the writers or the actors, so it's tough for me to speak any farther on this. How did Always Sunny justify using blackface? Justify... Or like when they have pimp characters, what's his name? It's actually a really funny name, but I forget now. How did Always Sunny justify using blackface? Because I don't know if they ever had question asked like that, or if they had to give Amazon consent to take their shit off. I don't know how it works. So yeah, it's a satire that's aiming to highlight the ignorance, narcissism, and delusional nature of the main characters. The show argues that the characters, not the creators, are the ones being offensive, using the characters' poor decisions to critique racism and misguided attempts at cultural commentary. All right, so they did address this during The Gang Makes Lethal Weapon 7. The characters are forced to reckon with the fact that their past Lethal Weapon sequels, which featured blackface, have been removed from the library, prompting them to address their actions. So it's like a part of the actual episode. They do that meta commentary a lot because they were frustrated that they never got any awards or any recognition for 17 seasons on the air. So they had a couple episodes like that. Spiders. What was I gonna say? I can't think of the guy's name. Pepper Jack, yeah. So they even had like a pimp character with that prototypical, stereotypical voice, like Pepper Jack loves Fraggle Rock. Is that means of canceling that episode because they're portraying a black pimp character talking like a pimp? I don't know. That's not for me to judge, but is that comedic? Is that offensive? If nine people think it's funny, but one person thinks it's offensive, or if one person thinks it's funny and nine people think it's offensive, where, what do you do at that point? Who do you make happy? I don't know. Is every black person offended by that? If you show that like as a focus group, I don't know. I guess I can't answer that. Of course, it's a hypothetical unless they actually did focus groups like that. But I bring this up only because the Disney example was right in your face. The 1940s, like nobody would give a shit back then. Yeah, let's have a crow character speak like this uneducated black dude and call the character Jim Crow. That'll get laughs. That was only, what, 80 years ago? So that's why I bring this up. How do you compare it to stuff today that kind of goes on the line? What about South Park when they had the Michael Jackson episode? Like, it's hilarious, but is it right to laugh at that? I don't know, man. Comedy is really difficult because it could get dark and it could get obviously offensive to people. Once you're in the public domain, no, not the public domain. Once you're a public figure, it's almost like you give up your rights to not have people invade your life. And almost these days, it doesn't even fucking matter whether you're famous or not. Your expectation of privacy is very fucking limited because of, cell phones and other shit. But just give up the internet. Well, if I could, I would, but I can't. My plan to grow my business is almost entirely based on the internet right now. That's how I'm getting these recordings out, reading my stories, and trying to have intelligent conversations about random topics like this. I don't know, man. Comedy is a different animal to me. I'm just stating my own personal opinions. Comedy should really have no bounds. I don't care how offensive it is. I know that will get me in trouble because if I push the boundaries if I was a comic or a writer writing for a television show, I would have to edit myself constantly because it's not really at that point, it's not my creation if you're with a team of writers. But if you're alone, like I'm doing, and writing stuff from your own imagination, it's a different hypothetical. Are there times when I did edit myself? Maybe. Nothing really comes to mind, though. Because I never intend to offend people with any of my stories. If somebody said they were offended by something, I would take note of it. And if it really made sense and I wasn't thinking of the context that they brought up, then maybe I would consider it. But the reason I was upset about the Always Sunny thing was just that instead of having a conversation about it, or Amazon stopping to sell it at that point, they actually went into people's personal collections and just removed it after I paid for it. That's why I was more pissed off. I'm like, they're playing mommy and daddy. They're playing Big Brother. Like, once you buy something, don't you own it? I guess not. Somebody could say the movie Strozek has suicide in it. That's disturbing. We're going to remove that from your library. What else? The movie Buffalo 66 shows some misogyny, even though it's a satire, and it has some bad language. We're going to remove Buffalo 66 from your library. Or, I don't know. I can't think of other stuff in my Amazon library that are kind of controversial. A couple years ago, I downloaded The State, that sketch comedy show from the 90s on MTV, The State. Hey, we're Barry and Levon. Or, hey, the Pope was coming to dinner. That was a pretty funny one. Or, if you remember that show, it was pretty good. A lot of famous people came from that show. Like a lot of sketch comedy. A lot of notable actors started there or maybe got famous through that show. It still holds up pretty well. But maybe there's one scene that's offensive. You better delete it from my library, Amazon. And I'm not trying to criticize Amazon here. Maybe they got pressure from people and they were like, all right, we're just going to delete it. If you bought it, well, you're fucked. We're not going to give you your money back. We're just going to delete the episode because we deemed it offensive and our authority allows us to do this. Like, I don't know how it works. I might have researched this when I was more angry about it because it was more of a principle thing. If I buy something on a streaming service, they have the right to go later and delete it from my library. That seems absurd if you actually purchase it. Like, I purchased every season of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Every single season I've bought. What do I have to do? Like, download them all to DVDs before they delete everything? So I don't like that type of thing. I don't think it's the most rational way to handle a situation like that. But I'm also a nobody. I don't run a company. If I was running Amazon streaming service and I was getting all this pressure, I guess I wouldn't even think twice about doing it at that point. I don't know, man. You want to be fair. You want to give people the chance to explain themselves. You want to give people the opportunity to make decisions for themselves without a company telling you, no, you can't watch this anymore. We said this was offensive because such and such people said it was offensive. So now it's removed from your library. But keep buying stuff from us. And it's just a weird type of strategy, in my opinion. I don't know why I went down this rabbit hole. I wasn't planning to speak on this, but I guess it's still in my brain. Is there anything in this story that's offensive to people? I don't think so, but I don't think anything I've done is radical, whether in my songs or in my screenwriting. There is nothing radical that nobody's done before me. I always call myself a parrot because I'm just kind of repeating the same thing over and over again, or I'm repeating themes from other modes of entertainment that I grew up with or that stayed with me, that really hit me as an artistic concept. It doesn't mean I'm stealing stuff. I might be borrowing things like the Paul Stamets that I just talked about. As we'll get into the story, you'll see what I'm talking about. Paul Stamets went into a tree high on mushrooms as a teenager, or however old he was, and he was amazed by the power of nature, and now his stuttering was gone right after that. It's a story that would stay in your subconscious because it's very powerful. Imagine being a kid, you have a stutter, maybe he was lacking confidence, he was lacking this or that. I don't know, is there a mental aspect to stuttering or is it just a physical thing? I really don't know. I've had speech problems though. When I was in grade school, I had to go to this trailer in the parking lot where a couple of us had to go there and practice our pronunciation and our phonics and our SHs and THs. So I had to do that for maybe a year or two, almost like a hooked on phonics thing. So it's been a struggle to speak for this long and not kind of go down bad habits like that. Not, that was so long ago. I was probably like 7 or 8. maybe older than that a little bit. But yeah, that was a good thing that the school offered, at least. To They didn't make you feel like you were like the dumb kids going to the trailer. It was more supportive like that, trying to just help you learn how to speak better, to enunciate your words and all that. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. But I never like speaking in front of people. It's probably why I'm speaking into my phone and sharing these on a social media platform that probably no one listens to. Maybe it'll get traction at some point, which is why I keep doing it. If anything, like I said a couple days ago, the more I do this and read through my stories, the more comfortable I am selling this to a studio, a production company. They want to know exactly what I'm trying to say in this story, and if they don't want to listen to my ramble for 3 hours, then I'll have a better capacity to explain what I'm going for. Rinse and repeat part one. What the fuck does that mean? Well, I'm trying to make a Pixar DreamWorks animation, but also put in some Terrence McKenna and some psychedelic elements in terms of the stoned ape theory. Well, what's the stoned ape theory? I'm just picturing how the pitch would go in my head if I could pitch this in person to somebody. And this will be the most difficult to get through. And I better start reading it now. We left off on page 21. We're about to meet the other tribe in this story. So you got to picture this. This is Atlantic City, but it's thousands and thousands of years after Atlantic City is what we know today. There's no more Atlantic City. There's very, very minimal population left, and all these people are just back to clan life and tribe life. And again, what is tribalism? What is it? What is it deep inside of us that makes us fear the other, the foreign enemy? What is inside of us that puts that type of fear and paranoia and xenophobia from a political standpoint, or just your neighbors? What is it? It's tribalism that back in the day our ancestors had to survive, and most likely they barely got enough to eat or drink, and their medical conditions were probably terrible, disease, barely surviving winter. And then they meet a different tribe and they're like, immediately they're going to feel threatened. What do these people want? It's kind of in our human DNA like that. I'm not saying it's really to that level anymore. I feel like most people would help anybody, like kind of similar to the Hippocratic Oath. Like, you're going to help anyone. You're not going to ask, well, what political party are you? I'm not going to help you if you're a Democrat. I'm not going to help you if you're a Republican. Are you a Muslim, a Jew, a Christian, a Buddhist? Because I need to know these things before I help you. Like, no, I don't think people think like that. In certain situations, people just show the better side of humanity, but that's still in you, like that fear of the other, the fear of the unknown, or people who don't look like you, people who don't talk like you, people who don't pray like you. And yeah, there's always that quest for almost maybe I'm because I think of religion mostly, like religions seem to battle each other all the time, like in actual wars and shit, but just in terms of what philosophy should win the day, or it's like a kind of a competition like that, like a reality show. Which religion will become the one true religion? So that's what I'm going for. This new tribe, we're about to meet 5 new people. I know it's a lot to ask to picture all these characters, and it's tough for me to read it as well, but on screen, you have to realize it'll be easier when all these characters are on screen together, you'll get to know them fairly easily, just like the 12 dwarves. I'm sure if there's a screenplay for Snow White and the fucking, how many dwarves were there? Snow White and the 12 dwarves, is that correct? Shit, I'm having like a brain fart now. Or is it the 7 dwarves? Snow White. Now I gotta look this bullshit up. God damn it. Snow White. How many fucking dwarves were there? Snow White and those fucking dwarves. The 7 dwarves. Why did I say 12? There's got to be some symbolism there. 7's like a major number. Snow White and the 7 dwarves. I wonder if there's racism there or against little persons. It's based on Brother Grimm fairy tale. But I do remember that. That was the one thing that freaked me out at Disney World as a kid, seeing the witch in Snow White. But Maleficent, is that the movie with Angelina Jolie? That was pretty good, actually. What is the symbolism? This is the... All right, I'm going to get to reading this. Now I'm curious, though. This is how my brain works. What is the symbolism? No, I don't want to learn about whatever that is. What is the symbolism of... This might be nothing at all, but I'm curious. In one of my screenplays, I talk about the significance of the number 7. What is the symbolism of 7 dwarves? Like, why did they make it 7? There's got to be some dark shit to that. The 7 dwarves in Snow White, they just symbolize aspects of human nature. Alright, so it's not really a numerology thing. They represent loyalty, found family, hardworking guardians. Alright, they're all good people. Symbolism of number 7. The number 7 is traditionally significant. It's kind of a magical, divinely appointed cycle, such as the days of the week, or what the 7 days of creation, right? God created the world in 7 days, seven deadly sins, 7 wonders of the world. Is it still the 7? I don't know. There is a significance to the number 7 in the spirituality sense. I don't know how that really formed, but one of my stories goes into that. Episode 11, I actually talk about that. Alright, we're going to read this story because this is going to be like a 4-hour fucking... I'm already at 40 minutes. Talking about Always Sunny for fucking half an hour now. Alright, we're at the river. As a new 5-member tribe walks in the shallow water, swatting away mosquitoes as they all appear sick and emaciated. Grood is the rough alpha male in his 40s. Riki is Grood's wife in her 40s. Boki is the young son of Grood and Riki. He's about 6 years old. Sag is Grood and Riki's older son in his 20s. And Wist, W-I-S-T, is Grood and Riki's daughter, about 18. She's kind of like the Xena the warrior princess mentality. Alright, so Riki is carrying Boki in her arms, and he's appearing very sick with yellow, jaundiced skin, and his eyes are all fucked up. So he's got some kind of fever going on. And back then, yeah, I'm sure people died left and right from stuff like that. As the young boy is sweating and coughing. And Lamb is walking on shore towards them, humming Ape Man to himself. We just saw Lamb having his mushroom trip near the electrical tower, where he was dancing to Ape Man and tripping out to that music with the vinyl record. So now he's humming it to himself and staring towards the clouds as we hear a voice. This is a familiar voice, Elisa, from the episode The Wraith's Refrain Part 2. We hear her voice from the clouds. Save the child. So that's the second time we've heard that line, save the child. Lamb is approaching the other tribe as Grood instinctually holds his spear out towards him, as Wist and Sag mimic their leader and do the same. Lamb picks out some leafy greens from his bucket and offers them to Riki, who stands confused as the sick Boki coughs into her chest. He chews on the leaf to try to gain her trust, then hands her some. After some hesitation, she finally feeds Boki a small piece of the leaf. As Boki opens his eyes a little wider and stares towards Lamb, she now places Boki in Lamb's arms, and they sit in the shallow water together. So they all instantly form a trust relationship, which is odd. She was a little hesitant to take the leaf, but then Lamb just looks like a spiritual shaman type, and I guess she trusted him. All right, page 22. Lamb is washing sweat off Boki's forehead, then cleaning his feet and feeding him another leaf. He now tickles his armpits, bringing a smile to the boy's face, while the rest of the tribe watched with caution, unsure of his intentions still. So maybe the other people have their spears up, kind of like, what the fuck is this weirdo guy doing? Humming this weird song to himself, trying to save our child. All right, we're outside the cave as the sun begins to set, and Lamb is walking towards the campfire, carrying Boki in his arms, as Riki, Grood, Sag, and Wist follow closely behind him. Sepp and Blad nap on the grass, pig remnants all around them, while Caleb notices the new tribe approaching and wakes them up in a panic. He grabs his long spear and motions to them to do the same, while the other tribe quickly approaches. Grood and Callum stare each other down, the two alphas staring each other down, as the two tribes size each other up around the fire, while Lamb sits down on a log with Boki in his lap and feeds him more stems, as he's placing a wet leaf over his sweaty forehead as well. Beau scampers out of the cave, carrying her fish tank, Gatorade bottle fish tank, and sits next to Boki, excited to see another child for once, while Callum and Grood continue to stare each other down, each man gripping tighter onto their spears, as the two alphas try their best to maintain dominance. Inside the cave that night, Riki sits around the fire holding Boki, who appears in slightly better condition now, while Wist grabs the last remaining leaf from Lamb's bucket and hands it to her. She tears it into smaller pieces and feeds it to him with a concerned expression on her face. Riki is whispering to Wist, "Tet popa habna reed," which means this is not our home. Wist gently grabs onto her and Boki, trying to reassure her. Wist, Boki rept alba, which means Boki get strong. She's saying, before we leave, let's take care of Boki first. All right, outside the cave, Grood and Sag are sitting by the fire, eating pig remnants. See, I already forget who Sag is. For me, it is tough to keep these. Sag is the older son, of Riki and Grood in his 20s. So he's aligned with Grood, it's his son. It's tough for me to remember all these names as well, even though I wrote this shit. All right, where was I? Alright, that's Grood and Sag outside the cave, eating the pig remnants, while Caleb sits across from them, chewing on meat from the tip of his long spear and staring daggers. Sepp places his spear by the fire pit, lays on his back and shuts his eyes, while Caleb pulls him back up, hands him his spear and drags him to the entrance. Blad following them. Blad, not blood. Callum. Gratek, translation is guard. Callum pats them both on the back, to Sepp and Blad. then walks inside the cave, leaving them alone to guard the entrance. Sep is holding his spear out in front of his chest, his hands trembling with fear, as Grood stares right at him, while Blad leans in and steadies his father's trembling arm. They smile towards each other, stick out their chest, then hold their spears up like Spartan warriors. Alright, what are we showing in this scene? There's still this these people aren't trusting each other. Kalin doesn't want to let Grood and Sag inside the cave, so he's keeping them outside, and he's saying to Sep and Blad, guard this cave, don't let anybody in. That's pretty much all this scene is showing. And as this is happening, we're going to leave this world and go into another dream, Lamb's dream. And Lamb is sleeping. When we start this dream, Lamb is sleeping on a desolate, snow-covered street, dressed in expensive snow gear, like a professional skier would be. As light snow falls, he gazes towards the snow-covered electrical poles and frozen electrical wires that line the street, and he sticks out his tongue to catch the snowflakes. He then walks past abandoned cars and buildings as he trudges on the snowy pavement, making crunching sounds with each step he takes, while the Cyclops leans against a nearby electrical pole, smoking a cigarette. Cyclops. He's speaking and it's like echoing all throughout the street. Save the child, save the child, save the child, save the child. Lamb is not paying him any mind, as the crunching sounds grow louder and louder with every footstep he takes. He finally lifts up his boot, picks up a shattered cell phone, and stares at it curiously. He then keeps walking as the crunching echoes louder. Then he bends down and picks up another cell phone. So he's walking on this piles and piles of cell phones. We now drift high above the street as piles of cell phones litter the pavement, covered in snow. Maybe this is another green philosophy thing. All these fucking cell phones in thousands of years, they're just going to be littered everywhere. We drift high above the street. No, we did that already. Lamb is staring up now at an electrical tower, similar to the one in real life near his home, near the cave, just as lightning strikes the top, and a shadowy figure appears wearing a long hooded robe. The figure removes the robe, revealing two elegant, angelic wings, which we might have seen before in a different episode, which are glowing brighter and brighter until everything on the street shines in gold, causing Lamb to shield his eyes. Now Lamb's dream is moving to space as he's drifting through the black void. Large buck antlers sticking out of his head, so now he has buck antlers on his head like he's a deer. And while all this is happening, a swirling streak of golden light forms a wormhole and sucks him in. Blinding streaks of light are on all sides of him now as he zips towards the narrowing passageway like it's closing in on him. As golden wings flap ahead, then disappear into the darkness. The passage narrows even more as shrieking sounds echo, and a massive explosion of light shoots golden swirls in every direction. He now zips out from the golden light back into the black void of space as the wormhole disintegrates behind him. Now he's drifting by a constellation of a woman holding a violin as she comes to life and plays a beautiful melody. Earth in the far background as a pale blue dot. So that's Lori. That's Lori again. We're going back to the second episode of this series. There is a connection to a lot of these characters, even if it's just as the spirit of Lori, as this starry constellation. I just think it's a cool kind of dream experience, almost like Lamb is experiencing everything that Lori went through. They have some kind of a connection. And I thought about this too, like maybe the Gloritin pills should be a better representation of Lamb's hallucinations. Maybe he finds old pills of Gloritin, but by then those things would be way rotted or disintegrate into nothingness. Mushrooms, I believe, would always be there, especially if there's not a lot of people. They'll just be free to grow. Mycelium networks are like a larger consciousness than humanity. I could be making that up, but I've heard that from someone. All right, we're continuing Lamb's dream. At least in terms of Pacific Northwest, I think there's like some really huge mycelium network, and I use the similar plot device in my Waitress from Mars story. That, well, I'm not going to get into that right now, but that's a big part of that story that I created way back in the day. All right, now Lamb is in an art gallery. In his dream, he's drifting by all these paintings, and one of them is of a fancy purple stagecoach in the wilderness, with the constellation of a woman playing a violin in the night sky. Lamb is neatly dressed in a fancy suit, and he's staring towards the painting with a glass of wine in his hand, as high heels tap on the tiled floor, and a woman's leg approaches him. Now we get to see the woman. It's Elisa. Elisa, the same character, but in animated form here, because this is all an animation. But it's the same character from the Wraith's Refrain Part 2, Elisa. She's dressed in an elegant gown, holding a glass of wine, as she stares towards the painting with him, Elisa. Golden prophets of the gutted void, like neurons escaping through tormented synapses. They stare at the painting and share silence. Elisa, what do you think of it? Lamb stares back blankly towards her, then sips his wine, while she gently places her hand on his shoulder. Elisa, don't worry. The next attempt will include a safe word. They walk together down the hallway, past other paintings of a beautiful countryside around a lake, and 6 white horses galloping down a hill engulfed in flames. Those are 2 of the ones from that episode, Wraith's Refrain Part 2, that Elisa actually painted herself. Elisa, all in all, it was a truly valiant effort. They now walk past a large painting of a demonic doppelganger who squirts red ooze from its monstrous mouth. Well, we all know what that's from. That's Jailbreak. And Elisa continues talking, but the shadow eventually overtakes us all. Now they both pass a painting of a supermassive black hole. Elisa, not even the gun can cheat the magpie. Sorry, not even the sun can cheat the magpie. They pass a painting of farm vehicles lined up on a country road, covered in blood and human remains, while 3 silos burn in the background. That's kind of like from the dream he was having of these cyclops raiding the shore as the ocean waters evaporate into the sky. And now they're attacking this rural place. Elisa continues, have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it. That's a Salvador Dali quote. I just thought it was fitting since they're looking at paintings right now. Now they're walking towards a painting of an electrical tower as lightning bolts strike the top. Elisa, I thought you'd appreciate this one. He gently touches the golden glow at the top of the tower on the painting. Elisa, flesh meant to illuminate, myths deftly maneuvered. When they finally get a grip on existence, refurbish the trenches. She leans in close to him, Elisa whispering, save the child. That's the end of Lamb's dream. I'm trying to make it as cryptic and mysterious as possible throughout a lot of these dream sequences. We're back inside the cave now. I included those just to break this story up. very hard to even read this because there's very little dialogue between these characters. These two tribes are now together. The main conflict is the sick child, Boki. That's everything now for the next 20 pages is based on that storyline. Inside the cave, Lamb is opening his eyes, coming to now after his weird dream, leaning against the cave wall. He walks to the electrical tower, drawing, grabs a trig covered in soot, and begins drawing something. Riki is cradling Boki in her arms by the fire, wiping sweat off his brow, while Bu hands him her fish tank to play with, then walks over to Lamb as he's finishing his cave drawing. So Lamb's probably the one that drew all these things in the past. He's placing the twig down and standing by her side as they view his fresh drawing, a constellation of a woman playing a violin. So Lori's story is continuing almost through this cave drawing by Lamb, thousands of years after her episode. The next morning inside the cave, Riki is still cradling Boki, both exhausted, probably haven't slept much that night, as sweat is dripping off his forehead, his eyes and skin yellow. Aura fetches a clean, damp cloth and places it on his forehead as he begins to convulse violently around the fire. Lamb notices the sick child's fit. Boki's fit. He puts on his animal skin vest, walks away with his bucket, while Callum grabs his long spear and follows him. Cave, moments later outside the cave. Lamb's outside the cave with his bucket as Sepp and Blad let him pass. And they're both... Okay, he's walking by Sepp and Blad, who are now asleep on their guard duty against the cave entrance, their spears by their sides, as Calum chases after Lamb. Calum, Suta, it means stay in my made-up language. Suta. Lamb ignores him and keeps walking, while Calum raises his arms up in frustration. Calum, Lamb, Suta, Lamb, stay. Calum winces in pain while Lamb walks farther away, then rubs his aching shoulder. As Grood wakes up and notices Calum's injury, Calum now walks back to the cave entrance enraged, waking Sepp and Blad from their slumber and handing them their spears aggressively. Calum, he's really angry here. Gratak, meaning guard. Guard the fucking cave, you idiots. Alright, he walks inside, passing Bu, who hides in the shadows, watching everything that just occurred, as Lamb walks farther away. A few hours later, Lamb is in the marshland, and he's carrying his bucket, trying to collect more herbs and mushrooms for the sick child. He's not going to give the child mushrooms, I don't think so. He's just trying to get herbs and other leafy flowers and stems, whatever, man. He's a shaman. He knows what he's doing. He's now staring up at the clouds as he plucks flowers from a bush, as a shadowy figure dressed in a hooded robe watches him from the distance. All right, back inside the cave. These are very quick scenes here. Aura, Pag, and Whist and Riki sit around the fire. So it's like all the women are sitting around the fire. Boki resting in Riki's arms as Bu puts on her animal skin vest and sneaks away towards the entrance, which is guarded by Sepp and Blad from the outside. To get past them, she squirms outside like a snake as Whist notices her from the shadows. Now, Bu is crawling farther away from the cave as Groot and Sag sit quietly eating pig remnants. And they notice Bu's odd behavior, but just continue eating, not really knowing what the fuck this little girl is doing. Now we're back at the river. As Lamb is collecting more plants and herbs, he pauses and chews on a mushroom as the shadowy figure slowly approaches him from behind. We think it's that mysterious figure, but when he turns around, it's actually Bew, who's jumping into his arms and hugging him. She now helps him collect leaves and herbs from the shore, then notices something glimmering in the dirt. She digs up a 1984 Olympic gold medal out of the dirt, still somewhat recognizable, and she's handing it to Lamb, who holds it up towards the sun, as we hear Elisa's voice again from the clouds. Save the child. Lamb uses some of the animal fur from his vest to string the medal like a necklace. So now he's wearing this gold medal around his neck, and he's collecting more herbs with her. So what does this gold medal represent? Well, it's coming from Joe's story in Marathon. Joe somehow lost his gold medal, or Manny took it out of the dumpster, and now, thousands of years later, they happen to find it in the marshlands near Atlantic City. So another connection to a former character, former episode story. A little bit later that day, Lamb is walking with Bew through a muddy passage as the river is a few yards away from them. His bucket is now filled to the brim with herbs, flowers, and mushrooms. The sun suddenly disappears as dark storm clouds form and lightning flashes, as followed by thunder and heavy winds, as grandfather and well, how am I going to say this? Lamb and his granddaughter run for cover behind a tree. All right. This is what I'm probably when I started getting influenced by the Paul Stamets story about his story of being in a thunderstorm high on mushrooms and losing his stutter right after. That's where I'm getting this influence from. All right, where are we now? Back at the cave as the storm is starting to really gain momentum now. It's probably like a hurricane type winds. Like you got to picture it like that. Sepp and Blad are taking cover under the cave entrance as the heavy storm begins to rage, as Groot and Sag run over and try to inch their way inside to protect themselves from the storm. Callum runs towards the entrance and sticks his long spear out horizontally to block them, as Wisp pushes him from behind, flipping him forward into the mud outside. As both tribes now battle to seek refuge from the storm, the rain falls even harder as Callum rises back up, pushes Groot away from the entrance, and charges towards Wisp. But Blad protects her from his lunging spearhead. Blad to the rescue, just as Boki screams out in agony from inside the cave. All right, what are we showing here? These two tribes are starting to get more aggressive now. A huge storm, and Callum still doesn't want these men in the cave. He'll let the women in the cave, he'll let the child in the cave, but he doesn't want to let these two strong men into his home because he's just afraid of what's going to happen. That's why he didn't want Lamb to go. He wanted everyone to stay with him. All right, the rain is falling harder, and then Callum is actually about to battle Wisp, but Blad protects her. So he's really not that dim-witted. He's preventing this all-out war right now between these two tribes by stopping Callum from hitting this woman. And as they're doing this, Boki is screaming because his illness is getting worse from inside the cave. Back with, these are the two settings now. We're going to follow Lamb and Bew, and then we're going to go back to the cave. Now we're following Lamb and Bew again, and they're trying to fight against the storm as they're leaning against a tree. This is Lamb and Bew on this muddy terrain. The storm gets even crazier, and the wet land sinks beneath them as the river begins to flood, leaving them surrounded by raging water on all sides like a flash flood. They quickly climb up the tree about halfway up. Then they stretch out on a large branch, their backs pressed up against the trunk. Bew crawls into a small opening in the trunk, like, one of those little crevices that you could fit in if you're small enough. Just large enough to provide her some protection from the storm, while Lamb is kind of shielding her from the wind and rain, trying to protect her. Back inside the cave, Grood hears Boki's wild screams and pushes through Blad and Shep as he charges inside to check on his son, as Sag and Wist follow after him. He runs to Riki's side and helps her hold Boki down as Boki's convulsing on the ground, almost like a seizure, I guess. As Sag and Wist cushion his head and try to keep him steady. Back at the tree, the flooding river surges higher and higher as Lamb and Bew sit upon the branch and watch the now hurricane winds wreak havoc around them. Lightning flashes as Bew cozies up for him for warmth, crouched inside this tiny tree opening, as he smiles towards her to keep her calm, and then stares down below as the floodwater rises towards them. A more intense flash of lightning blinds Lamb. Seconds later, he's opening his eyes, and a golden glow swirls around him, directing his attention to the electrical tower in the far distance, as Elisa's voice echoes from the clouds. "Save the child." Boki is now resting back in the cave in Riki's arms. So we're doing these quick cuts to follow these two storylines that are connected. Boki is in Riki's arms while she and Grood lean on each other and try to rest themselves after his violent convulsions ended. Blad and Wist are nearby underneath a cave dwelling of stick figures bowing down before the electrical tower. So Blad is kind of showing Wist other artwork here on the cave walls. As lightning bolts strike the top of the electrical tower on the cave dwelling. He helps her to her feet, then presses her finger to the lightning bolts, the drawings of the lightning bolts. Blad, Kara, which means light. Wist sounds out her newly learned word, Kara. They smile towards each other as she grips his hand tighter. So they're forming almost like a Romeo and Juliet type of appeal here. Two tribes that are not at war, but they don't trust each other. But these two young people are forming some kind of a connection, like a Romeo and Juliet type of thing, if you want to look at it like that. Back in the marshlands near the electrical tower, lightning bolts are striking the top of the tower as the storm rages on and the tall metal structure flashes with bright golden light, appearing like a beacon through the darkness. I guess it's just because it's such a large metal structure, it just gets struck by lightning all the time. It's not that far-fetched, I guess. In this scenario, as an animation, you can do whatever you want. We're on the top of page 30 now. Back in the cave, Wist and Blad sprint out of the cave, blocking the heavy wind and rain. They grab the soaked remnants of the pig and carry it together inside. Moments later, Wist and Blad lay the pig carcass, on a bed of straw near the fire, as she attempts to slice off the remaining rib meat, but her spear is not sharp enough to cut cleanly. She reaches out her hand towards Blad, who appears hesitant, but eventually hands her his spear, which is sharper than hers, allowing her to slice off the meat, then place small portions on a stick above the fire. Callum watches in disgust as they smile towards each other, so he's not happy that these two people are becoming friends. Wist is the one that just kicked them outside the cave not too long ago. So he runs over and snatches Blad's spear from Wist's hands, but she tackles his legs and jumps on top of him, knocking the spear away along with his own. He lays frozen completely at her mercy as she presses her spear to his neck until Blad is able to separate them and offers his hand down. Callum shoves his hand away, rubs his sore shoulder, grabs the spear off the ground, and points at Wist. Callum is very angry at this point. Siswa took, and he's yelling this at Blad, like, not us, she's not one of us. So he pushes Blad hard against the wall and then storms away as Wist comes by later, helps him up, and cleans blood off the back of his head with some straw. So Wist is a bad motherfucker. She's like a warrior princess, and she almost killed Caleb right there. She had him, her spear right through his neck. All right, we're back at the tree as Lamb is leaning against the trunk, fighting to stay balanced against the heavy winds, as Bew crouches behind him, playing with the gold medal. She slips off the slick branch, hanging on for dear life, but loses her grip. He reaches out his hand towards her, but she falls and lands hard onto a lower branch as her feet dangle in the dirty, flooding water. He quickly climbs down and pulls her up over his shoulders, just as a powerful surge rages by them. He quickly climbs back up to the other higher branch as Bew grips tightly onto his neck, and then he places her into the tree opening and inspects her bloody face. She tries to lift her left leg up, but notices her bone is now partially sticking out, and she passes out in shock as Lamb screams, "Bew!" and notices that she has a broken leg now. She doesn't respond as he shields her drenched, limp body from the storm while the water rises higher. Now we're back at the cave as Wist is leaning against the entrance, gazing at the storm's path of destruction, as Pag rushes outside in a panic, carrying Bew's fish tank, using the cave wall as her guide. Remember, Pag is the blind one, and she's just realizing that Bew isn't around. With all this other stuff that was happening, they didn't notice that Bew was gone, like a Home Alone type of thing. And so she's running outside going, "Bew, Bew." Caleb quickly chases after her and attempts to calm her down, grabbing her around the waist as Pag continues, "Bew, Bew." She breaks free from Caleb and runs out of the cave farther, but trips over a tree branch and falls headfirst into the mud as Bew's fish tank floats away with the surging water. Caleb and Wist subdue her arms and lead her back inside to safety. So Wist is actually helping him now. Maybe they're starting to trust each other a little bit as they stare daggers at one another. And Pag is still trying to break free because she's trying to find out what happened to Bew. So she's yelling into this crazy storm, "Bew, Bew." Back in the tree, Lamb is staring towards the dark storm clouds as a golden light beams down towards him, then swirls in the direction of the electrical tower in the distance, as once again we hear Elisa's voice from the clouds. "Save the child, save the child." So Lamb is now kissing the unconscious Bew on the forehead. Lamb, "Bew, straw." So he's saying that, "Bew, you're strong," as he's leaving her now. He places Bew deeper within the tree opening, then carefully descends down the tree. So he's making sure she's not going to fall again. And then he's going down the tree to follow this voice that says, "Save the child, save the child." He sticks, and he's on mushrooms all day, all night. So for the last few days, he's been taking all these mushrooms, And he's connecting to some other consciousness. You can't forget that too. Because I was thinking that, why would he leave his granddaughter in this tree? She's passed out, unconscious with a broken leg. Maybe he gives her some kind of ties her leg to the branch to support it or something. But he feels like he has to do whatever this voice is telling him. So he steps down into the flooding river. As he climbs down the tree, now he's in the flooding river, trying to manage to walk away from the tree, but the current's too powerful, and he gets sucked into the muddy water. He hits his head on some rocks, and his vision is now blurry as he drifts farther, unable to control where he's going. A shadowy figure in a hooded robe that we saw before walks along the shore, following his aimless drift, as he smacks his forehead on a fallen tree and sinks under. The figure calmly dives into the river, grabs his arms, and heroically carries him up towards the surface, as Lamb opens his eyes and squints at the figure's glowing face and passes out. We still don't know who this mysterious hero is. We're going into another dream now. This time we're at the Atlantic City boardwalk, as Lamb is dressed as a homeless man now, with a gold medal around his neck, and he's staring up towards towering, bright-lit casinos and surf shops and restaurants and carnival games, as tourists are dressed in 1980s attire and they're enjoying themselves around him. So this is Atlantic City's like heyday, middle of the summer with a packed boardwalk, and Lamb is just, where the fuck am I? But he's dreaming this. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He definitely looks kind of out of place as this homeless man. He's walking farther down the boardwalk and notices a hooded young woman playing a haunting violin cover of the Kink's Lola, as she's seated on a bench. The ocean waves behind her. This cross-dressing bearded man is from the Marathon episode, the one that was always messing around with Joe. About 30 years old, in a fancy fur coat. And this cross-dressing man, so I guess I call him a he, walks up to Lamb. He's drinking a 40-ounce in a brown paper bag. This is Lamb drinking this 40-ounce. And he's watching the stunning performance, as the cross-dressing bearded man finishes up the violin piece and says to Lamb, "Don't be falling in love now, honey. Musicians are all crazy." The cross-dressing bearded man, are they on the bench together? Is that what I'm going for? Sorry, yeah. Yeah, they're both on the bench, seated next to each other. I think that works better. The cross-dressing man with a beard is playing the violin to the Kink's Lola melody, and Lamb comes over and just sits down on the bench right next to him. As the cross-dresser puts his arm around Lamb, and the performance continues. So he starts playing some other song and says, "Guess we're all a little crazy though, to be honest. How can you not be if you made it this far?" And now Lamb and him are sharing the 40-ounce. As the cross-dressing man continues, "But I'm sure you don't want to stand here and listen to me try to define insanity. Who's really batshit? Who gets to throw the first stone? And all that jazz." A few other spectators are now tossing change into the violin case, while Lamb passes the 40-ounce back. And the cross-dressing bearded man takes a sip and then plays more of the violin and says, "Which tribal council maintains the privilege of delineating a man's incoherent ramblings from his moments of truest divine inspiration?" Lightning flashes far over the ocean now as he continues, cross-dressing man. Or is all that dogmatic fluff just another genre of psychopathy? that somehow gained global recognition as rational deduction. The hooded young woman finishes the performance, collects the money inside her case, packs up her violin, then walks away. Cross-dressing man. Insanity is like pornography under that lens of legal introspection, where the golden light begins to lose its virgin luster. The two men share some silence and stare out towards the ocean as more lightning bolts flash in the distance. Cross-dressing bearded man. Just as easy to get lost in the light as the dark. Now he's patting Lamb gently on the ass and walking away. Cross-dressing bearded man. Whatever gets you through the night, honey. Now he's whistling the melody to Whatever Gets You Through the Night by Elton John and John Lennon. As Lamb gazes out towards the ocean and more lightning strikes. That's the end of the dream. I added this one later just to have some kind of a respite from we're at the cave, we're at the tree, we're at the cave, now we're at the tree. And yeah, I thought it was a good place to put it because Lamb passed out after falling into the floodwater, and it's a good place to put some kind of a dream here. And he's at the Atlantic City boardwalk thousands of years ago. And yeah, I still like it. I think I got to work on the scene details a little. They're both sitting on the bench as this cross-dressing bearded man is playing a violin. In between, they're drinking a 40-ouncer together and having this conversation. Even though Lamb never talks in these dreams, it's always the other character leading the conversation. Continuing now, we're in the cave. As Whist is leaning against the cave wall, watching the storm rage outside, as Blad walks over and leans against the opposite wall. So they're kind of flirting back and forth. Whist smiles towards him, grabs a twig covered in soot, then draws a male and female stick figure on the wall. She points at the female figure, then places her hand over her heart. Whist. Whist is saying her name, like explaining how to say it. She's going like, Whist, me Whist. Blad walks over, points at the male stick figure, then pats his own chest, saying, me Blad. That's their introductions. They stare into each other's eyes while she places her hand over his heart. After a few moments, Blad grabs the soot-covered twig, draws a smaller female figure on the wall, and points towards the storm. Blad. And he's pointing outside, going like, Bew's outside. And she finally understands it, and she's saying, Lota donut, in her language, which means light comes. So this was complicated for me, making languages for two different tribes. Maybe they have similar grunting, but different dialects of grunting. I don't fucking know. So he's staring back blankly, not understanding what she's trying to say. So to clarify her words, she draws a large sun on the wall and directs the rays of light towards Bew's figure and says it again, Lota donit, which means light comes. So she's trying to cheer him up because he's worried about Bew too. Back inside the tree, Bew is waking up in that little tree opening, and she's realizing that she's all alone now as the floodwaters are rising up dangerously higher. She reaches out to grab her broken leg, but slips farther out onto the branch, then struggles to maneuver her body back towards the opening through the strong gust of wind. Now we're back at the marshland, following Lamb, who's still unconscious, on a muddy patch of land, underneath a tree, providing him some cover from the storm. So throughout all of these scenes, you got to picture a full force of a hurricane, just killing everything in its path, as this hooded figure watches over him. The mysterious figure finally lowers her hood to reveal Beverly, the 16-year-old from expanding universe that we met before as kind of Lori's guardian angel type. And now she looks the same, but she has like this angelic glow around her face. So she wrings out some dirty water from her hair, then smiles at Lamb warmly, helps him to his feet, and dresses him in her robe. As she does this, her angelic wings are freed, as we all notice her now with her wings spread. And she spreads out her wings more to shield him from the wind as he's blinded by her golden glow and passes out again. You could show it like that. I think he's still in a weak state here, and he's all mushroomed up, so his head's not maybe as lucid at this point to fight through a hurricane wind. So he passes out again. And we're going into my second attempt of being a stand-up comedian. We're at a comedy club at night. And another dream, as Lamb is sipping on a fancy drink within a large mushroom-shaped glass, surrounded by apes in casual attire, while a male robot comedian performs on stage. So the first time it was the ape on stage trying to tell jokes to an audience of dinosaurs. Now it's a robot on stage performing to an audience of apes as the robot comedian starts this stand-up routine. How about that whole singularity thing? Who would have thought that exponential curve shit would be so fucking exponential? Am I right, people? The apes all sneer towards him and boo loudly. Robot comedian continues. Ah, come on, guys. Too soon? Really? Did Banana Republic just lay all of you off recently? So he's making fun of the ape audience. They boo and hiss louder. Robot comedian. Hey, I'm sure there'll still be plenty of non-essential occupations for all you carbon-based life forms. No need to get your panties all wrinkled up those weird butts of yours. He walks off the stage. I guess it would be funnier. No need to get your panties all wrinkled up in those weird ape butts of yours. Apes kind of have weird looking butts. And now the robot's walking off stage, mocking the apes as they launch their drinks at him. Robot comedian in a mocking voice. Wah. I'm not as smart as a supercomputer. My consciousness was not deemed vital enough to be transferred over to our artificial digital overlords. Wah. Now he walks to Lamb, who's sitting at a table nearby, and he's placing his arm around him. Robot comedian. At least you're not like this guy over here. No offense, sir, but you're like the runt stepchild of medieval times and the rise of the fucking machines. Just whose side are you on here exactly? The apes are launching food and drink towards both of them now, as the robot comedian continues. Whoa, easy now. You know this guy's like your fucking great grandson, right? You're merely encouraging carbon on carbon violence right now. Lamb gets pelted with bananas and other debris. Robot comedian. Hey, don't be so hard on him. It was an inevitable evolution. That was hard to say. It was an inevitable evolution. Not like any of us had a choice in the matter. I mean, even I'll be considered obsolete in a few decades. A warm golden glow begins to engulf the entire room. As he leans in closer to him, to Lamb, robot comedian is whispering, the path golden in the billows, or the clouds, whatever sounds better there. The path golden in the billows. I kind of like that. What are we trying to do here? What am I trying to do here? It's just another bit of potential comic relief. The first one is like this ape comedian making fun of dinosaurs, like, hey, you guys died off and then we took over, as like the apes kind of inherited the earth after the dinosaurs left and became primitive man eventually. And now this robot is talking to audience of apes about how, well, you people, you carbon-based life forms were deemed non-essential. Now it's our time to take over the planet. The rise of machines, AI, and all that bullshit. And all these apes are booing this guy. That's all it is. It's only a quick scene to kind of put a little bit of a different spin on things. All right, let's continue this story. We're back at the electrical tower. This is a part of his dream. And this is taking part in a desert. So it's a desert, but it has that same electrical tower that we're looking at in Lamb's dream as it continues. The blazing sun is scorching the arid terrain as Lamb, with a gold medal around his neck, is crawling like a lizard towards the tower, where a crucified robot, he's silver with toned metal muscles and nails through its hands and feet. He's being crucified on this electrical tower. It's just robot being crucified on the electrical tower as the crucified robot is speaking in a deep robot voice. Why hast thou forsaken me? Now the robot lowers its head and dies as a high-pitched screech echoes, and more robots of the same design march towards the tower. Their robot hands turn into cell phones, which they point up and snap photos of this crucified robot and this tragic scene as the sun disappears and the ground begins to quake. Lamb crawls to safer terrain now. So Lamb is experiencing this moment. He's with the robots and he's crawling to safer terrain as Robot 1 stands over him, staring intently with its lifeless robot eyes. Robot 1 with a deep robot voice. Salvation in the billows. Save the child. You could use whatever fucking voice you want. That's the only robot voice I know. I'm a robot. I'm a robot. Alright. And the earthquake is growing in strength. Land falls down this smoking crevice, disappears into this darkness underground as demonic bat creatures emerge from the depths and black out the sky. And that's the end of this little dream. We go from the comedy club to this crucified robot Jesus figure on an electrical tower as all its robots' disciples are taking photos of it. I had this vision once of something like that. I wanted to draw it, but I never did it yet. Like a crucified robot in the Jesus pose on like an electrical tower, and all his disciples are just staring up towards the crucified robot taking pictures with cell phones. I don't know why I had that vision before, but it might be kind of a cool concept for an album cover or a graphic novel or something like that. The Robot Jesus graphic novel soon to come. Maybe I'll write that after I finish my 70 or so concept albums. So stay tuned for that one in about 20 years. All right, we're back in that tree again as we visit Beau very briefly as she's still barely conscious with her broken leg, crouching against a tree opening. And she opens her eyes a little wider, stares towards the rising water, then shouts out into the darkness, Beau, Lamb, Lamb. So yeah, you kind of feel sorry for her here. Lamb just left her there. But he was thinking, she's strong enough, she'll survive. Let me go follow my mushroom trip here and save the child, whatever that means. Save the child. Save the cheerleader. All right, back near the electrical tower. Lamb is limping through the heavy winds as the hurricane is continuing here, wearing Beverly's hooded robe. And then he's falling to his knees and squinting towards the electrical tower, which is a bit closer to him now. He's clutching his gold medal as more lightning bolts strike the top of the tower, and then he slithers through the muddy terrain as it sinks beneath his feet. He fights with all his might to keep from sliding into the floodwater as a golden light flashes, painting the entire area in a bright glow, which he uses as a guide back to safer ground. So he's about to fall back in the flood. Beverly's shining her golden glow and kind of saves him again as he notices her flapping her wings in the distance as she's flying towards the tower. So he's following her now, trudging along this muddy terrain, fighting through the hurricane winds as more lightning bolts strike the top of the tower. And I'm just guessing that during a hurricane you can have lightning as well. I'm guessing that's a thing. Whatever, if it's not, you can kind of just make something else up at this point, but I don't see why not. It's a crazy lightning storm hurricane. Do I have to look this up now? I guess so. God damn it. Alright, what was I going to look up? Can lightning take place? I've never had this question in my mind before. Can lightning take place during a hurricane? I'm going to say yes. Can lightning take place during a hurricane? I don't see why not. Is there some weird... they can't exist at the same time? Yes, both hurricanes and thunderstorms can produce lightning. Lightning is only caused by the built-up discharge of electrical energy between positively and negatively charged areas from storm. All right. That's all I'm going to look up. That's good enough for me. And that's good. There's a type of connection to electricity here, too. Like, I did make an electric tower. So it kind of fits this as well. This story and what I'm trying to show here. All right. Now we're back inside the cave to see how these tribes are doing. Have they killed each other off yet? They're still alive. Grood, Wist, and Sag are sitting near the fire, where Riki is holding Boki in her arms, and he's in worse condition than before. She pours water into his blistered lips, his face even more yellow in the light of the flames, as he convulses again in her arms and vomits. Kalen stares at the emaciated boy's discolored disposition like he was possessed by some dark force. He looks like he's possessed by a demon at this point. And Kalen turns his attention towards Aura and Set, who are both coughing nearby, so maybe they're catching whatever sickness this is. And they appear to be turning the same color, but not as bad. Then Kalen is raising his long spear towards Grood, and he's saying, Debas Ritho Loprek, which means you bring darkness. So he's saying, you're bringing sickness to my family, get the fuck out. That's pretty much what's going on in his head right now. But again, the other tribe doesn't even know what he's saying. They just see this crazy alpha with his long spear yelling at them. So now the two alphas are going to fight as Caleb rams his long spear into Grood's smaller one, launching him just inches away from the fire. Grood rolls onto the ground, his face bloodied now, reaches for his spear, but it's snapped in half. Caleb lifts his long spear to strike him, but Blod and Wist run over and pull him away. As Grood rises in a fury and thumps his injured shoulder with the blunt side of his spear, sending him to the ground in torment. Wist and Sag pull him towards the cave entrance and try to calm him down as he fights to escape their hold, while Pag tries to help Caleb, who rolls around and shouts towards Grood with all his strength. And he's saying the same thing again. Debas, Ritho Loprek, you bring darkness. So, yeah, you could say Caleb's kind of a paranoid dude, but he's seeing other people in his tribe get sick now, and he's saying, shit, these people came into my cave, and now they're getting everyone infected with this disease. And he's getting, more rage now as the alpha trying to protect his people. All right. Let's move on. So the tension is really getting crazy inside the cave now. That's all these scenes are supposed to develop as we go back and forth. And there's also tension in the tree as we see Bew again in the tree opening. Half her body is exposed on the slick tree branch, and it's very dangerously inching out a little farther off the branch. She's about to fall off. She wakes up and fights the heavy wind to stay balanced as she struggles to keep her broken leg upright. Wow, the floodwaters almost reach her now. She sobs in despair, appearing to have lost all hope of rescue, as Lamb is nearer to the electrical tower now. His journey is to get to the electrical tower. That's like whatever he's hearing inside of his head from his new connection to this consciousness. He's moving towards the electrical tower, getting closer and closer. And he's limping through the storm, holding his hood up over his head. And he's squinting towards the glowing tower a few yards away now. Another strong gust tosses him against a tree as he grips tightly onto a branch to stay upright. Now galloping sounds echo louder and louder through the storm as 6 white horses streak towards him, appearing more like a nightmarish mirage formed from the wind. These horses charge faster with the chaotic power of a hurricane as he shuts his eyes and grips harder into the branch while they pass right through his body like a pack of ghost horses. Now he's limping forward through the mud, struggling more and more as more wind gusts flip him onto his back and lift the gold medal over his head. He crawls to retrieve the medal, appearing as desperate as ever as he stares towards the dark clouds and yells to the clouds, "Sweta Yutek!" And that means show yourself. He's speaking to like whoever this voice is telling him to save this fucking child who he just met, who's about to die in this cave. And this voice is telling him, save this child. So now a giant bolt of lightning strikes the top of this tower, lighting up the sky as hundreds of slimy caterpillars rain down and crawl all over the muddy terrain. As Lamb is screaming, Sweta Yutek, show yourself, show yourself. And he shuts his eyes. I wanted to use frogs here, but I feel like that's a biblical trope. And it was in that movie, whatever it's called, Magnolia. I never saw the whole movie, but I do remember that these frogs were being rained down like a biblical plague. I know it's something to do with the Bible. If frogs are raining down, then you probably are going to freak out. Like, oh shit, all that Old Testament shit is real. Fuck. Alright, so I just changed it to caterpillars raining down. Lamb shuts his eyes, and this might be the last dream, I think. It's getting weird, man. Hopefully you're not too off base of what I'm going for. Another dream from Lamb. You have to remember this is an animation, so you could be as weird and artistic. Make this a weird fever dream as well. Make it as artistic and a different type of animation. Make it as artistic as you want. I can't think of any other words besides artistic. I don't know. Make it as unique in terms of animation as you can think of to make this stand out. Like, it's not supposed to be a Disney movie. It's not exactly a Rick and Morty episode because there's not like wisecracks, even though I love both of those things. I love DreamWorks. I love Pixar. I love Rick and Morty. Blend it all together and see what you come up with. I love heavy metal, like that type of animation. The type of animation that's in Pink Floyd, The Wall. I love that shit. That stuff freaked me out as a kid. Those hammers and shit. Marching down the street or whatever. I vaguely remember it. Alright, let's continue with Lamb's dream. We're on page 40, maybe 10 pages left. Lamb is walking down the center aisle leading up to the altar, where a large electrical tower sculpture hangs on the front wall. Instead of a crucifix, we're inside a country chapel now. I picture like this really pristine white walls everywhere, a very pure country chapel in the middle of wherever he's dreaming of. And instead of like a crucifix, at the front of the altar is just a electrical tower, almost like that's the symbol of the cross. Instead of a cross, it's the electrical tower symbol. All right. He's walking towards it, passing stained glass windows on both sides of him, as the congregates sit in pews, and they're dressed in these cult-type hooded robes, kind of like the one he has on in when we last saw him from the robe that Beverly gave him. They're all wearing a similar robe. Now we're going to look at some stained glass windows. One of them depicts the electrical tower with lightning striking the top, with a golden sphere levitating above it. Another window is depicting an army of Cyclops walking on the parted ocean floor. Another window shows a mushroom atop the planet Earth. Another window shows a glowing angelic figure soaring over a flooding river, also known as Beverly. Another window shows a constellation in the night sky of a woman playing a violin. Another window shows hundreds of colorful butterflies flying over a tree. Another window shows a black vinyl record levitating towards the sun. Another window shows 7 demons and 7 angels battling on a soccer field. What the fuck are we talking about here? Yeah, I can't really go any deeper into a lot of these. Well, one of them is Lori, one of them is Beverly, one of them is a mushroom. These are all symbols from Lamb's story here. Like he's creating this religion, or somebody else creates it after he's gone. How do religions start? It's a similar type of oral tradition based on a crazy experience like this. He's the first human in this reiteration of human civilization to expand his consciousness to this mushroom because of the mushrooms. All right, I can't really talk about this too long, but some of these things will come up in later episodes. The 7 demons and 7 angels battling on a soccer field. I told you I did use the number 7 because it's like a meaningful spiritual number in that episode, Rebels, episode 11, which we'll get to in 2 days from now. And the robot preacher is the silver, muscular metal body, similar to appearance as the one that were around the crucified robot, like that same style. And he's walking towards the congregates carrying a basket of mushrooms, 2 altar robots by his side, as the robot preacher is saying, Vita vet cara, carry the light, over and over again, as the congregates say back to him, Vita vet cara, carry the light. They're going like a ritual here. I don't know why I made it a robot preacher. I really don't. But I just did for some reason. Maybe in the future, everything's going to be robots. Even priests and nuns will be robots. Because, of course, I'm taking this from my experience with the Catholic Mass and stuff. This is almost like a Eucharist ceremony. Instead of eating the host, all these people are walking up and eating mushrooms. And as they do this, the melody of 8 Man plays from the church organ. And they sit back down after they consume the mushrooms, and they sing along to the pipe organ as they're singing 8 Man. Because compared to the sun that sits in the sky, compared to the clouds as they roll by, compared to the bugs and the spiders and flies, I am an 8 Man. So they're singing that together. I don't even think I'm singing it right, but however the melody goes, it's a part of this church ritual. They keep singing as Lamb slowly walks down the aisle towards the robot preacher, who holds out a mushroom for him and says, Singularity in the billows. Lamb consumes the mushroom. And now we're back at the Atlantic City Boardwalk. The next part of his dream as he's wearing the gold medal around his neck, and he's waking up on these rotted wooded boards, surrounded by long abandoned casinos like the ruins of some ancient civilization. So this is different than his last experience. There's nobody. It's a ghost town now. Atlantic City Boardwalk. It looks like a dystopian future where all humanity has been crushed and there's no more life. Maybe this is because the oceans just got emptied and the Cyclops destroyed everything. Maybe I was thinking that. I was not taking mushrooms as I wrote this. It might seem like I'm really scatterbrained, but this is a very difficult script to get through. Lamb is walking by a tattered ice cream stand as the ocean waves roll onto the desolate beach. And he follows this loud, creepy carnival music to a shooting game booth where he stands in front of 4 clay heads with their mouths open wide. A cyclops, a dinosaur, an ape, and a robot. So he aims this gun with green liquid into the ape's mouth. But the more liquid he shoots inside the ape's mouth, the more his own head expands and expands and expands like a balloon, and then it finally bursts. And a golden sun emerges from his neck, where his face used to be, as the clay cyclops head comes to life and laughs like a madman and starts speaking. This is the Cyclops from the carnival game with its mouth open. The sun's new permutation, backed up in the billows. That's the end of this weird dream. We're almost done here. Don't worry. There is an ending to all this crazy shit. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you know those carnival games where you shoot water into open mouths. You know what I'm talking about. And whatever creatures you do it in this case, it's a cyclops, a dinosaur, an ape, and a robot. All right, let's keep going here. We're back at the electrical tower once again as Lamb wakes up face down in the mud, directly in front of the tower now as the storm rages and hundreds of caterpillars crawl in the mud around him. He's bowing down before the tower as a massive lightning bolt strikes the top. Then he's holding up his gold medal like an offering as he says, "Vita vet cara, carry the light." The gold medal levitates out of his hands and floats up towards the dark clouds until it disappears from his sight. Bright stars suddenly appear above him and form the shape of a woman playing a violin as he watches her perform a haunting melody. Now the stars disappear as intense beams of light charge through the darkness, revealing the sun in all its glory, while the hundreds of caterpillars transform into colorful butterflies, painting the sky like a psychedelic dream. You really want to go crazy with this scene. Throughout most of this movie now, the last 20 so pages, it's been dark and dreary, gray skies, hurricane winds, lightning, total darkness, floodwaters, all this bad shit. Now Lamb offers up the gold medal that he just found, and it's like an offering. And the sun comes out, lights up everything, the storm's done. And all these caterpillars turn into butterflies and just fly around like psychedelic, like he's having another psychedelic dream here. Back inside the cave, Riki's by the fire, cradling Boki, who's coughing into her chest, as Blad and Sepp run into the cave, smiling wide, and drop their spears down, as they say, "Vita vet cara, carry the light, carry the light." Callum and Peg run towards the entrance with them, gaze up towards the sun, and embrace each other. So they're just happy that the storm's over. They still don't really know where Lamb is or what happened to Bew, but at least they're happy the storm's done. Back in the tree, Bew is struggling to stay balanced as she's about to fall from the branch. She squints towards the new sunlight and smiles, then reaches for a butterfly that lands on her hand. but she slips off the branch by accident, and she quickly grabs onto another branch below her, but she's losing her grip, but Lamb appears out of nowhere, reaches up and cradles her just in time, just before she plummets into the floodwater. She cuddles closely to him and smiles as they carefully descend down the tree, as hundreds of butterflies fly all around them. All right, we're back at the marshland as bright sunlight shines down on Lamb as he carries Beau in his arms, who now wears Beverly's hooded robe. She squirms in pain from her broken leg, then slides onto the grass, reaching out towards her broken leg. Just as an intense beam of sunlight shines onto some bright purple burdock plants nearby. I think I looked that up, like what kind of herb or remedy can help the pain of something like that. And I think burdock plants came up in something I was researching. It doesn't have to be, just show these bright purple plants. Lamb's grabbing them and feeding her a few of the stems to make her feel better. But it's almost like the sun is guiding him to these plants. That's the point here. And that's why he chooses them and feeds it to her. And he stares towards the clouds for a few moments, like he's downloading instructions. And then he collects 2 sturdy branches and he kind of creates a makeshift splint to support Beau's broken leg. So he's downloading information from the cloud. Like that's what it's supposed to be symbolically, to help Beau. A few hours later now, Kalim and Pag staring out towards the marshlands from the fire pit, as Blad and Whist are moving out now, beginning their search for Beau and Lamb, as the sun is starting to set. So it's almost evening, or it is evening, it's almost night now. Where am I? Blad and Whist. They're shouting to the distance, Beau, Lamb, Beau. Like they're like a search party at this point. Kalim now holds Pag tighter from behind, and kisses her neck to try to relieve her worry. Kalim, Beau strong. Grood watches them from the shadows of the cave entrance and notices Kalim's long spear leaning against a log. Back at the marshlands, Lamb is sweating all over as he struggles to carry Beau in his arms, as more blood streams out from his calf wound. I don't know if I mentioned that. He has a really bad wound on his calf with blood just pouring out. So he's collapsing onto the grass at this point as Beau cushions her fall with his chest and turns to him, concerned. Lamb. That's Beau talking. Lamb shuts his eyes, no more energy left within him, as the sounds of hissing echo around him. Now a little bit later, Blad and Whist are searching for Beau and Lamb through bushes and fallen trees, carefully treading through the storm's path of destruction. As Blad yells out, Beau, Whist bends over and picks up Lamb's plastic bucket, which was stuck on a tree branch. She hands it to him and they press on at a quicker pace. Blad and Whist yelling together, Beau, Lamb, Beau. Moments later, a massive, colorful snake with large oval spots. Sorry, missed a typo there. This large snake with colorful spots slithers towards the incapacitated Beau and Lamb as she desperately tries to wake him up. Beau is screaming now, Lamb. She's trying to wake him up as the snake is slithering onto her, sticking out its tongue and coiling around her chest, while she fights to free herself, only making it more angry and determined. She screams out, and the snake wraps around her tighter, just as Blad and Whist spots them. And Blad is yelling, "Bew!" Without hesitation, he launches his spear at the snake, striking it in the spot, one of the spots dead center. He and Whist run over and embrace her as the snake slithers away. And then they look at her splint curiously. And at that point, Lamb's eyes open while Bew hugs him tightly and kisses his cheek. Their crazy, dangerous ordeal finally appearing over now. So it's almost a happy ending as we go back to the cave now, but wait a minute. Caleb is noticing that Grood is sneaking towards his long spear, and now they're both racing for it. So, I don't know, Grood is probably thinking, yeah, well, we survived in this guy's cave, but I still don't trust him. Let me grab his long spear and become the alpha of all alphas. Now they're fighting and wrestling on the ground as Pag ducks down against a log to protect herself. Grood is gaining the advantage and pressing the large, sharp edge against Caleb's throat as he struggles to breathe now. Caleb flips him over with his legs, sending the long spear flying a few yards away. They both grab it at the same time, but Caleb kicks him away, clutches it, and lunges it towards him. Grood somersaults at the last moment, rises, and then thumps Caleb on his injured shoulder with a large stone, causing him to drop it. As his shoulder dislocates again, Grood retrieves a long spear and holds it up to Caleb's throat. At that moment, Sepp sprints out from behind and tackles Grood, while Grood quickly subdues him and launches him hard against the cave. So Sepp is trying to play hero and save Caleb, and he does, in a way he does, but Grood is able to subdue him moments later and just launch him against the cave. He then picks up the long spear and limps towards Caleb, who is now wriggling on the ground, rubbing his dislocated shoulder. Sag and Aura return from collecting firewood, notice the fight, and charge at Grood as he's about to strike the fatal blow. Caleb tosses ashes into his eyes while he's distracted by them, and the two wrestle through the fire pit some more. Their intense combat suddenly halts as they both stare out in wonderment towards the distance where Blad and Whist carry the rescued Bew and Lamb towards the cave, along with Lamb's bucket full of leaves, herbs, and flowers and mushrooms. So these two guys are just having it out, battle royale, but then they notice Bew and Lamb coming back with Blad and Whist, and they both kind of just pause, and cooler heads prevail at this point, because I'm guessing Caleb was also worried about his daughter and his father, and he's like, he has all of these anxious thoughts within him. And then he notices Grood looking to snatch his long spear, and yeah, they just have an all-out battle there. But cooler heads prevail at the end. Now, inside the cave that night, Riki rips apart some burdock root around the fire. I'm not a shaman. I don't know what the fuck burdock root is, but it doesn't have to be that. Whatever you want to use here. You don't even have to say what it is. It's just leaves. I put that in there to try to sound like I was smart, I think. And it looked good. The purple flower looked pretty cool, I think. I think it is kind of an ancient remedy, but I have to look it up again. I forget what it really does. Alright, Riki rips apart the burdock root, or whatever the fuck you want to use, and feeds it to Boki, while Bew sits next to him, her broken leg now supported by Lamb's splint. Whist and Blad are resting together nearby, sitting against the cave wall, as Caleb walks by and adds more wood to the fire. What I was going for, yeah, these people probably never seen anything like that. Before that, if somebody had a broken bone, they probably just died. But now they see the splint that somehow Lamb designed, and it's kind of saving Bew's life. or allowing her bone to reset. All right, where are we? Riki walks to the crater. Riki walks over to Caleb now with Boki in her arms, and he's much better now. So she hugs him in appreciation and thanks for saving her son's life. They share a long, warm embrace. Then she sits back down while he leans his long spear against the wall and shakes hands with Grood, finally signaling peace between the two tribes. So everything looks to be coming out on the good side of things. These two tribes are now combining their resources. Caleb and Grood walk together past some fresh drawings on the cave wall. The one of a large tree with butterflies flying around it, an angel with glowing wings, and a huge mushroom over a circle that appears to be the planet Earth. So these are all drawings that Lamb must have just done when he came back. But they're looking around, they're like, where the fuck is Lamb at? But he must have just came back before, his leg wound was still losing a lot of blood. But he was able to draw these things on the wall before he passed on. Because now we're going to get to his death scene, I guess. This is Lamb I'm talking about. But this could be the origin of whatever that religion that I do plan to write maybe one or two more episodes of this story, of this religion that came from this origin story. This is the origin story of this religion because it brought two tribes together and it formed from all these cave drawings. This is the new religion that humanity will follow, at least for a little while at least. And instead of going up to communion and eating the wafer, which is supposed to be the body of your Savior, in this religion you eat bits of a mushroom, and it's a totally different type of a ritual. But I'm going to get into that later. I'm talking way too long here. This is a very hard story to get through. I'm at 2 hours and 7 minutes right now. Page 46. Lamb is outside of the cave, kind of in a desolate location away from the cave. He's gazing at the stars as it's now nighttime. And there's more mushroom stems on his stomach. All right, we have been at night, yeah. Inside the cave was night. This is outside the cave, it's night. And he's staring at the clouds and he's saying something to himself. See you in the billows. That's his last words. He grins and shuts his eyes. And that's pretty much him dying there. So let's relive that one more time. Since that's a very short scene, Lamb's laying on his back on the grass, gazing towards the stars, eating more mushrooms as we see other mushroom stems on his stomach. Lamb is saying quietly to himself, see you in the billows. So this is the first time we hear anyone of these primitive people speaking in English. But because Lamb was able to open up his consciousness to this other network of communication through the mushrooms, that's what I'm going for. It reverts back to the stoned ape theory. Of course, it's not factual in any way. It's not scientific. But this is a fucking stupid animation. And I think it's a cool way to present how human beings evolved into creative entities and into different versions of what the human brain can be, I guess. I don't know how to talk about this stuff, as you can tell. But Lamb is becoming the artistic person drawing these cave drawings because of his psychedelic visions and his experiences. And that's all this is trying to show. I'm not trying to say mushrooms are the answer. I'm just showing how certain things can be interpreted by different opinions, at least, of what human consciousness can be and how it's connected to mycelium consciousness. How are we the same as that, as a network of organic life forms? It's all interesting, but I'm not smart enough to talk about it. All right, we're going back to a comedy club after Lamb shuts his eyes. You could call this another one of his dreams or a vision he's having. We're back in a comedy club as Lamb is sitting inside a mushroom-shaped chair. He's surrounded by cyclops creatures, griffins, titans, angels, bat-winged demons, zombies, Rottweilers, other mythological gods and goddesses. All these creatures are just hanging out, drinking, smoking, in casual attire. And on stage is a dinosaur comedian this time. We had an ape comedian, we had a robot comedian, and now we have a dinosaur comedian talking to all these mythological creatures. And he begins his stand-up routine. Any of you more wrathful gods planning on sending an asteroid of great flood upon the masses anytime soon? Just asking for a friend. You know how it is. Good to get a head start on those things, build a virtual ark for all my social media followers. The crowd boos loudly at this dumb joke, while Lamb grins and bites into a mushroom. The dinosaur comedian continues. What, you didn't find that one funny? Wah, wah. I'm an almighty, all-powerful entity, but I just can't take a gosh darn joke. Wah, wah. I got butthurt by all this sarcastic sacrilege. Wah, wah. I thought you guys had a sense of humor about these things. One of you must have come up with that whole farting concept. Now all these gods and mythological creatures are launching food and drinks at him and booing louder, while the dinosaur walks down from the stage towards Lamb. The dinosaur comedian continues. At least try to modernize the apocalypse this time. Have you tried the zombie one yet? Or is that still in pre-production? Because it sure feels like you've been preparing some planet for that whole freak show. The zombies in the crowd rise excitedly, because there's some zombies in the crowd as well, and they're hooting and hollering while he puts his arm around Lamb. The dinosaur comedian continues. Looks like we got a neophyte joining us tonight. Clean him up a little, get him a good marketing team and an expert legal department, bury some mysterious ancient text in the sand somewhere, and he just might be the next contestant on My God is Right. The crowd now laughs and cheers towards Lamb, dinosaur comedian. Let's see the next prize up for grabs. A brand new dogma. The Rottweilers roll around in fits of barking laughter. Dinosaur comedian. And for your showcase special, a luxurious life of paradise. A luxurious life of paradisal promised lands with your brand spankingly pure, tax-free status. Now the dinosaur comedian leans in closer towards Lamb, for only Lamb to hear, while the crowd cheers in the background. So he's winning the crowd over, I guess. Dinosaur comedian, beckoned by the billows once again. Alright, what the fuck is this one about? Because I don't even know anymore. What am I trying to say with this last stand-up comedian? I don't know. We have this dinosaur comedian talking to these gods and random creatures and other shit. I even put Rottweiler dogs in there. Because in the Man and Deer episode, dog is God, and he's like a giant Rottweiler. I think that's why I put that in there. So he's just trying to rip some God jokes, I guess, about mythology, and if you're going to have another apocalyptic events, give a brother a heads up, man. So he's just trying to go to that route, that type of a comedy. If you're a dinosaur and your audience is a bunch of mythological creatures and godlike entities, what is your routine going to be about? I don't know. I was in some weird places at this time, I think, mentally. Not that I'm not at this point either. All right, let's move on. We're at the cave now, a few days later. This is the last page. There's like 2 more paragraphs, really. We're drifting down from the white, fluffy clouds as Caleb and Grood sit around the fire pit, smiling wide, feasting on pig ears. So they caught another pig, and they're having a feast with this new pig. The 2 tribes coming together. And there's actually 2 roasted pig carcasses now. So they caught 2 pigs, and they're skinning it and sharing it and feasting as the 2 tribes are coming together as one. Nearby, Whist and Vlad are staring up at the clouds, and then they're cuddling and kissing, while behind them, Boki and Sag fling a vinyl record back and forth like a frisbee. Sag launches the record towards Boki with a bit too much gusto as it flies over his head and lands near a freshly dug grave. So now Boki is completely recovered. He's healthy, normal kid now. Bew sits on the end of this grave. Her broken leg stretched out in lamb splint as she forms an electrical tower symbol in the dirt with some twigs to serve as a grave marking. So this is Lamb's grave. And she's putting like a gravestone. Instead of a cross, she's making a electrical tower symbol. Now she's digging up some mushrooms out of a nearby mound of dirt, and she's curiously biting into it, then burying the rest of them around the grave. She stares towards the white fluffy clouds and smiles to herself. And that's the end. So really, Lamb isn't the one that's going to start this religion. It's going to be Bew. It's going to be this tribe. These are the descendants of Lamb, and they're going to create this mushroom religion. And you see Bew is going to be the one, because she's biting into the mushroom now, taking over for Lamb. And she's going to experience the same type of consciousness that he got to experience before he died. That's all this story's to show at the end here. It's a happy ending. When I first came up with this idea, it was nothing like this. The only scene I had in mind when I first thought of this idea was that these 2 tribes come together. At the end, there's only like 1 piece of meat left. And you think they're at peace, but then both of the men reach for the last piece of meat, and you look at their eyes, and they're about to fight again. But I decided against that and just said they live happily ever after. More realistically, yeah, that could have been an interesting look at, you think you have an ally, but then once the resources go down and there's only 1 piece of meat left, you're going to go back to survival of the fittest, crush your competition. And that's kind of what I wanted to show in that case. But I always talk about that shit. Sometimes good, happy endings occur. So this is a very happy ending here. The 2 tribes live happily ever after. 8-Man plays during the credits. And as 8-Man plays, we have some additional animation going on around the electrical tower, as both tribes, except for Lamb, because Lamb's dead still, are dancing in front of the tower as 8-Man plays, as that crucified robot is now shimmying along with them from the tower, still kind of crucified, but it's kind of like Monty Python, always look on the bright side of life. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So the crucified robot is dancing along as all these other people dance from the ground to 8-Man by the Kinks. They all fall to their knees, they're bowing their heads, waving their arms above, as now robots enter the scene and join the dance party. The dancing now halts as blinding sunlight beams down and a glowing figure slowly descends from the clouds. As the figure lands, we realize it's Lamb, as he breakdances joyously. He then holds hand with Bew and Boki and skips with them in a circle around the tower. Dozens of apes are now appearing and dancing with the tribes and the robots while we drift high above and watch this joyous celebration, kind of similar to the dancing around the Christmas tree from the end of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. again, this is just during the credits. I just wanted to put something because I had more scene ideas and I figured I'd just add them here. All right. So from that weird scene, the music stops and we go to another comedy club as electrons, protons, neutrons, atoms, molecules, streaks of colorful light, and black holes are drinking and smoking at comedy club tables, watching a alien comedian on stage. So now we have an alien comedian and his audience, or her audience, I don't know if it's a man or a woman. I put male, so it is a male. And this male alien comedian has an audience of like electrons, protons, neutrons, atoms, and all that weird technical shit of what comprises everything in the universe, black holes and stuff like that. So again, make it as weird as you want. Maybe this is Rick and Morty because they do stuff like that. I feel like Rick and Morty have done stuff like this. All right, the alien comedian begins his act. I see we have some electrons here in the audience tonight. No offense, guys, but I do have to ask. Why you always have to be so damn negative all the time? He laughs at his lame joke. While the crowd remains silent in their seats, rolling their eyes at the stupid joke. Alien comedian. Have you ever thought about the power of positive thinking? Or do you protons have the market cornered on that? Or do you protons have that market cornered? So this is a terrible comedian, and I'm actually doing it worse than whoever speaks these lines would do it. Well, of course, I'm not a voice actor, but all right, he's a very corny dad joke type of a comedian. The crowd stays unresponsive, like you could hear a pin drop. Alien comedian still continues. I have a solid 10 of mostly black hole jokes, but I don't know if you are quite the right crowd for that. The atmosphere seems a bit uptight, like you're all caught up in your own electromagnetic clouds at the moment. He paces around the stage to more awkward silence. Alien comedian. Any of you planning on another big bang? Because I heard that first one was a real good time. He eyes the silent crowd who are just sitting at their tables like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? As they sigh. So he finally gives up and waves towards them. Alien comedian as he walks off the stage, quietly to himself. Fuck this. I told my agent this room wasn't right for me. Loudly to the crowd. All right, well, that's it for me. Good night, everybody. And I guess that would be the end. It's kind of like a Rick and Morty. After the ending of a Rick and Morty episode, if you wait after the credits, they'll do like a short 20-second continuation of something or some weird animation. That's all this is. And it's maybe needs some polishing up. See, we have some electrons here in the audience tonight. No offense, guys, but I do have to ask, why you always have to be so damn negative all the time? Get it? Negative electrons? Get it? Have you ever thought about the power of positive thinking? Or do you protons have that market cornered? Ha, ha, ha. I have a solid 10 of mostly black hole jokes. But I don't know if you are quite the right crowd for that. The atmosphere seems a bit uptight in here, like you're all caught up in your own electromagnetic clouds at the moment. Get it? Any of you planning on another big bang? Because I heard that first one was a real good time, if you know what I mean. And then he's walking off the stage. He's giving up, like, fuck this. I told my agent this room wasn't quite right for me. And then he says to the crowd as he walks off, all right, well, that's it for me, everyone. Good night, everybody. And just end the episode there. It kind of works, just as a stupid false ending, or whatever you want to call something like this. A double ending. this is the weirdest script I wrote, even though I say that a lot. This one is just completely leaving me kind of puzzled. Like, what the fuck did I just read? And you got to split it up like that. Part of this story is a Disney story because that's how it originally started. The whole 50 pages was just Bew and Lamb fighting in the hurricane and then back to the cave as the tribes were battling each other. And then back to Bew and Lamb in the tree. And then back to the cave. And then back. And that's all it was for like 50 pages. And I don't even know how I wrote that much. It was just back and forth from those two scenes over and over again. And I'm like, I can't even read this. It's so terrible. There's nothing that would excite the audience. Have I improved it from that point? Yes. I put all these other flashbacks and dream scenes and comedy club hallucinations or whatever these things represent. I just think it's interesting to jumble all these things together and see what an animation team can develop to make people laugh, to have a good story as well, but also to make it as original as possible. It's part Rick and Morty, it's part Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, because it is kind of a family drama with a happy ending. Lamb is the shaman, and he sacrifices himself to save Bew and the tribes. He saved the child in the end. He did save Boki's life. And he put his faith in the mushroom consciousness, I guess, and he was able to save the day and sacrifice himself. I can't get much deeper than that. That's really the heroic quest was Lamb. And Bew continues his legacy. Bew becomes the new shaman. If I rewrite another, or not rewrite, if I add another chapter to this story, a part 3, it's going to contain the religious side of things. How did they start this religion? I think that's where I wanted to go with this, to show how a religion can form like that. You have this incident of this hurricane and it brings these two tribes together, and then they maybe bring other tribes together. They start converting other people to their religion because they found this path through the mushroom. I'm not promoting mushroom use. I'm really not. But I'm also not against it. Do what you think is good for you. Like, I would try it. The microdosing or psilocybin or a peyote trip. I'm not against trying these things, even though I consider myself straight edge, and I want to get a tattoo at some point on my neck with a straight edge symbol because I do enjoy that lifestyle. And I'm proud to promote that. I think it is a good lifestyle. Clean living as much as you can do it. I'm not being preachy here. I just think it's good for myself. I'm not getting a tattoo on my neck because I'm like proud and like I think I'm better than other people. That's not what I look at it as. I'm putting it there to keep me sober like that, to keep me sober minded, because I'm weird enough, man. I write stories like this. I never took drugs when I was writing this. Never took any mind-altering substances, even though it seems like it at times. Or some of the albums I've written, everything was done sober. People might not like my art or my voice or certain aspects of my personality, but I would definitely promote a sober lifestyle because I've experienced both sides of it throughout my life. I never had to get a rehab or anything. I was never that bad, thankfully. I was just a weekend drinker, social drinker, but most of the time I just drank until I blacked out. Or, a little bit of just recreational pot. Nothing crazy, though. I never had to do it every day or anything. I said I could go down that angle easily. I'm in New Jersey. You can go to a dispensary. They're all over the place. They seem to put them right next to Taco Bell's. That can't be an accident. Taco Bell and other fast food places are like, yeah, put that weed dispensary next to our place. All the fucking potheads go get their drugs. and then go get tacos. That's like a brilliant strategy. But yeah, if I wanted to, back in 2021, instead of doing this journey to write all these stories and try to make sense of everything in my head by doing this stuff, I could have just done that. I think weed was legal at that point by 2021. And I thought about it too. I was like, I could go to this place nearby my former apartment, buy some pot legally, and just enjoy myself for a while. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just didn't go that direction, man. If anything, I think it would have been an obstacle for me. Some people can do it and it balances them out. Usually for me, it would make me paranoid even more so than I usually was back then. I don't know if it would have helped me or made me even more delusional in a way. I don't know what the effects would have been to do it myself, because it's been like a good 15 years since I smoked a joint or anything. And you don't know how your body will react the first time as you get back into something like that. But I'm not against it, man. Believe me, I'm not judging other people. If I got a straight edge tattoo on my neck, a big X, to say what my lifestyle is, I'm doing it for myself, not to promote it really, or to say I'm better than anybody. That's the life I'm living. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but I'm considering getting a tattoo like that at some point, because I do live by that type of a philosophy. But also, I would like to try a psychedelic type of experience, either ayahuasca or the peyote, to see what it would do, just out of curiosity. I'm not trying to party. I don't look at it like that, like I'm going to a rave or Burning Man. I'm just going to a ceremony in the desert, taking peyote or whatever, and I'm going to try to put my trauma behind me and move forward in my life, because I don't know how to do that with the religion that I was brought up with or other things around me at this point. The research I did, there was one church in Arizona, the Peyote Church or something, I forget what it's called. You have to pay, I don't know, $1,000 for this retreat, and they serve you this peyote, and you kind of go on a spiritual quest or whatever. Or I've heard stories about the ayahuasca. It sounds maybe even more powerful in terms of hallucinations and stuff. But I don't know. I'm not educated to really speak on any of this stuff. Why did I put this mushroom angle in this story at all? Because it might seem like I'm promoting it, but I'm not promoting it, and I'm not saying it's a negative thing. I'm really not. You got to be careful with mushrooms, right? If you're looking to get it yourself, I think it can be tricky between good mushrooms and poisonous mushrooms. So there's all kinds of risk in this. You don't know how you'll react to it. I don't know, because I haven't done it in my life. There was one time in high school where I think somebody said it was magic mushrooms, but it didn't do anything. The reason I wrote that story with the peanut butter and jelly and mushroom sandwich was because that's how I ate it, and it didn't do anything. I ended up just staring at the stars all night, waiting for something cool to happen. I'm like, fuck, man, this shit's defective. Or maybe it was like somebody playing tricks on us, giving us like portobellos, saying, yeah, these are magic mushrooms, man. You fucking idiot. And it just didn't do anything at all. I don't know. I need more experienced people to describe what maybe I would have. Maybe I just didn't take enough, and I don't know. I don't even know what it was. Psilocybin is the one word I know, and I don't really know anything else besides that. But it is something I'm interested in, because why not? I don't think I don't think it's going to cause me to like pretend I could fly off a building or anything. Because sometimes you hear stories about that with certain chemicals totally deranging people. But that's not why I wrote this story. This story is not like, yeah, mushrooms will unite everyone as one peaceful race. I'm just trying to explore every side of this human experience that I'm personally on, this journey that's gotten me this far. I'm not trying to promote anything else, man. And I don't know if people get addicted to mushrooms. I really don't know if that's a thing. It seems like it's more of a tough drug to take because it could last for a while. Like, I've heard stories about Jim Morrison taking LSD like every day. Like, I just don't know how true that is. How can you survive like that? Does your body just build up this, like you just become used to it? You get this tolerance for LSD or other drugs where if you start hallucinating or having a bad trip, you're just used to it and you won't freak out. I have no idea how it works, man. I'm not interested in the LSD side of things. I'd rather do the natural stuff, mushrooms and peyote, and that's probably as far as I would go. DMT, I don't even know what that is. I know people say that's like the God molecule or whatever it's called, the God chemicals. But I'm more interested in peyote and mushrooms, certain mushrooms that could kind of lead you on a psychedelic quest. And I don't care. I think you can be straight edge. If you're going into an experience like that for the right reason, you want to improve your state of mind and find a more peaceful representation of yourself and other people and a new path in life. I don't see that as a negative, even if I promote a straight edge lifestyle. I don't see those two things as combative. Although, yeah, maybe lifelong straight edge people that have been doing it for 20, 30 years, like strictly, almost like a religion, they might think differently. Like, I don't know how it works in everyone's head. Is straight edge community like a group think where you have to follow this dogma? I don't think it is. Maybe some people can make it like that or make it seem like that. But if I want to go on an ayahuasca retreat like once a year or go on a peyote trip once every couple months to clear my head, I don't think that is an enemy of the straight edge philosophy. I don't think it is. Because I'm sure there's people who are straight edge that take pharmaceutical pills to help their mood, some kind of a mood altering pharmaceutical pill. Because it's prescribed by a doctor, then it's okay. But if I want to go into the desert of Arizona and take some peyote with some strangers and hopefully they don't gut me and take my organs. I've had that paranoid notion now for the last few days because I'm thinking of other horror movies. You go to this retreat, you think you're going to have this magical, mystical journey with the peyote, but it's really just a scam. And when you get there, these people are going to cut you open and take your organs. Like The Hills Have Eyes, like that type of a scene. Yeah, I have weird thoughts like that. It's a good horror movie concept if you could build that story out a little bit. Anyone want to steal that from me? People go to Peru and they think it's going to be this amazing ayahuasca retreat, but it's really just a scam. And all these people are vampires and demons, and they're going to kill all the tourists. But there's a group of tourists that are fighting back. Write that story now. Give me like 5% if this becomes a global hit. But yeah, so I don't want people to say, oh, he's writing this story because he's promoting drug use or whatever the fuck you want to say. That's not what this is. I had to include something else to make this story more entertaining, and I figured I'd go the psychedelic drug route, and why is that so radical? I don't think it is. People microdose psilocybin. I don't know if that's legal in America, but in other places it's totally acceptable as a way to bring up your dopamine levels or balance yourself out. I want to say in Iceland because it's dark all the time and there's a lot of suicides because of that. But that's the first thing I'm going to look up here. Iceland microdosing. Is that a thing? I want to say that it's kind of common there, but let me look it up here. It's a growing topic of interest, according to Google, though it still remains illegal. See, I was wrong. Psilocybin is classified as a controlled substance, and both possession and cultivation are prohibited. So I was wrong. I thought it was a thing there. Yeah, it's still illegal. And it doesn't look like it's any movements to bring it legal anytime soon. But even in America, there's different psychedelics that are being used as a form of therapy. People experiencing trauma, PTSD of soldiers coming back from war, people going through shit, they're able to at least test how certain drugs will help them. The one recently was with Rick Perry and Joe Rogan. I forget the name of the drug, Ibogaine or something. I listened to it. I didn't really, yeah, there it is. Rick Perry, Ibogaine. He's actually an advocate for the use of Ibogaine, Ibogaine, a psychoactive compound derived from a Central African shrub. After undergoing the treatment himself in Mexico in 2023 for anxiety and traumatic brain injury, Rick Perry reported significant improvements in his mental clarity and calm. Well, good for you, Rick Perry. So yeah, why wouldn't you want to? I'm not being prevented from living my life due to this gripping or mind-numbing anxiety, crippling, that's a word. I don't have a crippling anxiety or a paranoia, but I have experienced it in the past. I know what it feels like. In 2020, 2021, I definitely was feeling that shit, man, where the anxiety takes over your life and gives you physical ailments because it takes over everything. It takes over your daily thoughts and your physical health. It's all connected, man. Your mental and physical health. It is completely, to me, it's all connected. If one's out of focus, then the other one's going to be fucked up. So would I try something like this? Sure. I don't see why not. I still feel like I have a brain cloud because I don't know how to build my business at this point. I'll go back to that line. Like, I don't know what to do at this point in my life to step out and build my own fucking business. I mean, as a financially viable business, not like, oh, I have been doing my Substack for 6 years. I have 350 posts or whatever it is now. I have wrote a book with over 400, 500 songs. I have another book in the works that I haven't worked on because I'm doing this. But how do I make that a survivable enterprise where I can live off of that shit, or at least make an income on the side as I'm still trying to move across the country at this point? How do I grow this business to a success like that where I can be stable in my life for once? I don't know. Is taking a drug like this going to open up some avenue to clear my head? I don't know. It could. I don't know if I have a trauma at this point, but I'm definitely not living my best life. I don't really do anything. And I don't care. Like, I'm not whining, I don't have a social life. I really don't want one. all I want to do, I sounded Scottish. All I want to really do is my Kickstarter project, but I don't know how to do it. It's very frustrating from that angle, but that's not like a PTSD comparable to some soldier coming back from war or a police officer, EMT, seeing all this horrific shit, and then they want to clear their head, so they go take this ibogaine or some other therapy. I don't see why that is not legal to try. And I don't understand why these things... Is it what I was trying to say in that dream sequence where Lamb dreams of these apes that build the mushroom-themed restaurant, and they're serving these healing mushrooms to all the other apes and sending them on their way, clearing their brains and expanding their consciousness. And then the pharmaceutical company gets their hands on this shit and says, wait a minute, we're going to make money off this. You can't do mushrooms anymore. We're making that shit illegal because we have a drug that has the same effects, but you have to buy it from us. That's how I kind of look at some of the shit that goes down in terms of the pharmaceutical industry. It is at that point, I believe, where it can be a very corrupt institution, and it's not all like that, but probably from the things I've read about the opioid crisis, that kind of led me to believe that shit is really fucked up, and the government doesn't give a shit. They're making money just like anyone else from the opioids. So it's hard to really take anything seriously when you hear these pharmaceutical ads, and that's what I was going for, that in that dream sequence that I put in this script. But again, I'm not educated on this, man. Listening to a couple of Joe Rogan podcasts and Paul Stamets. I don't think I read his book, but maybe I saw the documentary Fantastic Fungi or something. And I'm not watching it because I really want to do mushrooms all the time. It's just an interesting look at a different type of consciousness. I believe it was called Fantastic Fungi, right? Fantastic Fungi is a documentary, 2019, directed by Louis Schwartzberg, that explores the world of fungi, narrated by Brie Larson. The film features mycologists like Paul Stamets, Michael Pollan, author, showcasing fungi's role in medicine, environmental solutions, and consciousness, while also touching on their use in psychedelics and psychiatry. It has a 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm going to have to watch that if I haven't watched it already. It might only be on Netflix, I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a Netflix documentary. But it's worth writing about, even if I'm not as knowledgeable as other people. I'm not pretending to be like, I want to be cool, so I'm going to write about psychedelic mushrooms, man. Because I'm cool. I'm cool, I'm not a narc. Like, that's not my thinking. I just needed to make this story fantastical and find a different angle. The angle became psychedelic mushrooms, and how does that affect a primitive brain? Even though these are our ancestors, they don't go to school. They don't have a formal education in terms of language. They don't know religious history. They don't know about politics. These are people that just live day to day to gather food and prepare for the winter. That's the only thing they think about. That's not that long ago, too. I was just listening to a podcast about Marty Robbins, El Paso, the singer-songwriter, Marty Robbins, Gunfighter Ballads, or whatever it's called. And they were talking about his upbringing, even before the Great Depression, his family was just crazy poor. They had to build like shacks out of trash wherever he lived, and then he moved to Arizona, I think, and some of the struggles that people had to go through back then. That's not that long ago. It's the way people survived during the Great Depression and shit. Marty Robbins, yeah. I like that album. I actually put it on my list of favorite 501 albums of my life so far, whatever I called that. Gunfighter ballads and trail songs, yeah. It's a pretty amazing album. Every song might sound the same, but it's still interesting. And yeah, I do like the album cover too. One of the podcast hosts was saying the album cover is like one of his favorites, and I do agree with that. It's just a weird experience, yeah. So, why am I bringing that up? Yeah, just in terms of what people were thinking about, even if these are our ancestors in the future, thousands of years from now. They don't have super Walmarts to go get food. They don't have employment options. They don't have saving for college or anything else. Oh, what car did our neighbors get? We got to get one like that. Or what's the new hot documentary or Netflix series? The only thing in their brains is we got to get food. We got to get water. We got to find warmth. We got to prepare for the winter and begin harvesting stuff. They're not really farmers at this point. These are very primitive people who probably don't live very long. They're animals. They don't have anything else to offer besides we need to survive. We need to survive day by day. So it's a different life if that's what you wake up to. If your waking thoughts are, I need to go hunt and forage, I need to go hunt and gather, whatever you said there. I need to find a way to start a fire in this rain or whatever the fuck, like Quest for Fire. I mentioned that movie. And Apocalypto is kind of similar when you see these tribal people fighting against other tribes and now the Spanish are coming. How quickly your life can get uprooted like that. Yeah, but more than anything, I want this to be a very funny animation. I'm making it sound way too serious with all the talking I'm doing now and all the shit I talked about before previously. I just want this to be funny. I want it to look really unique in terms of animation and give people an escape for an hour. So they'll be leaving this like, what the fuck did I just watch? Marathon is weird, but it's a very straightforward story. Man has a rough teenage years in high school. He has a shitty job in the inner city, but now he's becoming a marathon runner in the Olympics. Like, it's not a weird story like this one. You can point towards once in a lifetime and say, yeah, that's pretty fucking weird. I agree with that one. But this one is a different experience as well. And it's the second animation I've done, or that I envision as an animation, because how the hell would you do this as a live acting? It just would be too crazy of a production. Unless it's like a lot of CGI stuff. But it works as an animation in my head. That's how I view it. And I don't have much else to say about it. I know it was tough. It was tough to read through the script, so I'm sure it was tough to listen to me. You're trying to picture these 12 different characters at some times because they're all together in this cave, and in that aspect, it's an easy production. You just need to find a tree, a marshland, and a cave. But then there's all those other flashbacks and dreams and crazy effects of the lightning, this huge rusted out electrical tower, and it just works as an animation, man. It gives you the freedom to pursue these concepts, to create a psychedelic experience through animation, where people will leave this episode and be like, yeah, I gotta watch that again. I have no idea what I just watched. So putting deeper elements in a subtle arrangement to kind of keep people interested, but keep people coming back for another viewing. That's what a good movie can do, or animation, anything. Memento, I could watch that again and find out some other, or Donnie Darko is a better example. I've watched that movie like a dozen times. Every time I watch it, I gotta look up, what the hell are they talking about with Grandma Death, and is this all parallel timeline? Is Donnie really dead or something? Or he knows when he's going to die? That's the 30 days that keeps appearing on the screen. And he's preparing for his own death that his orb is leading him towards. And there's nothing he can do to prevent it. And then what the hell is that airplane engine falling through the sky into his bedroom? That's from like a different dimension, like a wormhole opened up. Like Donnie Darko has the type of a story that I still can't explain to someone. If somebody said, I'm thinking about watching Donnie Darko, what's it about? I'm just going to say, I'm just going to run. I'm just going to sprint away and be like, no, don't bring up Donnie Darko. Watch it and then go on YouTube. Listen to more intelligent people discuss it, because it's a weird ass movie, man. So that's my main goal with maybe every episode I do to some degree, but this one especially, to kind of go the opposite direction of where this started. It was such a bland reading experience. It would have been a bland viewing experience if it was created the way I originally wrote it. I'd probably still have the original version somewhere saved. But now I want to go the opposite direction and make it as weird as possible. Every dream sequence is weird. Lamb is hanging out with teenagers, eating mushrooms, watching Dazed and Confused. And then he's at the Atlantic City boardwalk. His head blows up like a balloon and bursts. And then this sun appears coming out of his neck. Like there's a sun within him. I just wanted to make it as weird as possible, which is why an animation is not just preferred, I think it's necessary. It's the only way an episode like this works. So is it easier to produce a animation, or is it easier to produce a live action? I don't know, in terms of production costs and finding an animation company. You just got to work with people that you trust can bring this to life the best way. Just like Man and Deer, hopefully you can find an animation team that could put their spin on both of those stories in different ways. Man and Deer might be easier, but you still need a lot of voice acting. Same for this one. Like, how many characters are in this story? At least 12? Just the tribe people, and then you have all the weird dream people in the dreams, the cross-dressing violin player, and Alisa shows up again in the art gallery, and those teenage kids eating mushrooms, and yeah, going on and on. It gets really weird. All the stand-up comedians with those scenes, I think there's 4 of them, yeah. There's a lot of potential of that too. Like you could find real comedians to do some of these, the scenes in the comedy club. I think I was trying to conjure like Jim Gaffigan type of jokes, Sarah Silverman, Dave Chappelle jokes, and maybe I was trying to think of Mitch Hedberg. I don't know. I don't remember now, but there's a lot of potential to make this a very weird experience, and that's what this series is about in a nutshell. Take people out of their mundane lives, if they do have mundane lives, because not everyone is as boring as I am. But you want to offer people an escape. It's the reason I watch baseball. This morning I was taking a shit looking up Major League Baseball stats. How many home runs does Schwarber have now? 17, I think. And Brandon Marsh is like batting 350. What the fuck? I didn't know that was happening. But it's the reason people do stuff like that, to escape from the other mundane shit in their life. Sports and entertainment. It is entertainment. It's not a different entity. It's just a different form of entertainment. But yeah, sports is different. It's almost like a reliable friend. That's what baseball offers. You know the summer's coming when baseball season starts. It's the beginning of smelling the fresh grass and that whole American poetic side of it. It's more of a loyal companion. You can listen to baseball every night for 162 nights and feel connected to something. So that's a beautiful thing, yeah. I don't know how entertainment can do that, but a show like Seinfeld or The Simpsons or for me it's Better Call Saul. I keep rewatching that because I love that show. But when I was giving platelets, I would usually watch Seinfeld because it brings me back to my childhood, watching reruns of Seinfeld after school. And giving platelets, you could probably watch like 6 Seinfeld episodes in a row. They're about 20 minutes each. So yeah, probably about 6 or 7. And it brings you back to a happy time when like these were your friends, your TV friends. Most of my viewing experience as a teenager was The Simpsons, then Seinfeld. For a long time, for years, I was come home from school and you could probably get right into Simpsons and Seinfeld in a couple hours. So it is kind of like a ritual thing. A lot of television shows can become that, just like a baseball game. Or anything, any sport, not just baseball. But baseball is unique because it's every single night. Like it's such a long season. It's a marathon, 162 games from April to October. Like nothing else compares to that, right? Like everything else is around 80 games in a season. Basketball, hockey, and well, football, of course, you're only going to have maybe 18 if they add another one. But there's like all kinds of union stuff with that. So that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to take myself too seriously. This is not meant to be a preachy episode. Like, oh, you want to find enlightenment, and you got to take mushrooms, man. That is not what I'm trying to display through this. I'm just showing how a religion could form like that. If Terence McKenna was right, and somehow the stoned ape theory is true, and that's how the human brain expanded from primitive man to kind of what we are today, then that's in our heritage. The power of the mushroom consciousness. Stranger things have been theorized. It's not that crazy, man. What do we really understand about any consciousness? And I don't know how to term that. I was going to say mycelium networks are even more powerful in terms of signaling. I don't know how to talk about this stuff. Go listen to Paul Stamets. Go listen to Paul Stamets and learn about this shit if you're interested, because I don't know what I'm talking about. Mycelium networks compared to human consciousness. Let's see if this brings anything. If nothing, I'm just going to end it here. Mycelium networks compared to human consciousness. Mycelium networks and human consciousness both function as complex, decentralized, and highly connected information processing systems. Mycelium acts as an underground internet that shares nutrients and signals to make decisions. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here. If you want to learn about this stuff, yeah, just go learn about it, because I don't know anything either. The networks of a mycelium network can share a structural memory where the physical layout of the network stores information about past experiences, like finding food. Mycelium operates with high sensitivity due to its environment. It lacks the personal identity, self-reflective awareness, and abstract thought of human consciousness. Fungi exhibit a form of low-level consciousness or subconsciousness, whereas humans possess higher-order conscious thought. All right, I'm going to stop here. I don't even know what I'm talking about reading these lines, so go listen to Paul Stamets, like I might do later. If you want more information on mycelium networks, if you're interested in that stuff. It plays a part in this story, but obviously I didn't do a lot of research on it. But what if there was a major organized religion based on mycelium networks and mushroom consciousness and all that hippie stuff? It's not that strange. They're Scientologists, not to make fun of Scientologists, but people probably thought that was strange when they started. Or even Mormons, people criticized the Mormons, saying they were had a crazy belief structure. I'm not saying any of this stuff. Scientologists are cool with me. Mormons are cool people. But is it really that weird to think of a mushroom-based religion where people go to church and consume mushrooms instead of other stuff? Like, it is a Native American tradition to at least do peyote ceremonies. That's a part of their spiritual rituals. So it's not at all odd, and I'm sure it exists. I'm sure there's mushroom-based religions at some level throughout the world somewhere, or at least individuals who swear by doing stuff like that. So I'm not trying to be critical of anything in terms of your belief system. I don't care. People rip on Scientologists. People rip on other lower faiths. Kind of like how the NoFX song, The Decline, states it. The Christians love their guns. The church and NRA, they form a salvation. Prey on the lower faiths. And I'm not knocking Christianity either. It's not like I really believe in that, but from that perspective, yeah, you could look at religions as survival of the fittest. They're all kind of competing against each other to win the imaginations of the nation or the world. The Christians love their guns. That might be more about the NRA side of things, yeah. But there is a quality of organized religion that does work in that way. They don't want to be threatened by other belief structures. It's always been like that. I don't know what else I can add before I really start talking crazy shit. The Christians love their guns. I want to make sure I was singing that correctly, reading those lines correctly. The church and NRA. If you never heard of Decline by NoFX, go check it out. Pray for their salvations. Prey on the lower faiths. Yeah. Yeah. If you never heard NoFX, The Decline, that's also something in my subconscious a lot of times, because that's like the best punk song ever. NoFX Decline. That's a good place to end this story. Go listen to that. It's an 18-minute punk song from the 90s. You could look it up on YouTube. They do a performance with Baz's orchestra, like Red Rocks or something. And it's really quite amazing musically. Whether you agree with the politics or not is not relevant. Just go listen to the music. It's amazing, man. But similar themes that I often kind of considered. And there's also a nostalgia appeal because we used to listen to this all the time. The Christians love their guns, the church and NRA. Pray for their salvations, pray on the lower faiths. The storybook's been read and every line believed. Curriculum's been set, logic is a threat, reason searched and seized. Yeah, and it goes on, but those are some of the best lyrics that I remember. They're biting, but yeah, it's a punk song. What do you expect from a punk song, man? It's similar, like when you say Christians, you're not speaking of individual Christians really, but as the greater political element of organized religion, whether it's Christianity or anything else. It can become a type of a uber competitive, money hungry beast full of some corruption and stuff. That's what I interpret. I'm not going to speak for NoFX here, but a lot of this does come up. If you're brought up religious, you can kind of connect the dots to your own personal life. This song is about a lot of stuff. If you want to listen to a good punk song, and I'll end it here, go listen to The Declines. It's like I'm giving people homework assignments now. All right, children, this is what I want you to do. Go take some mushrooms. No, I'm not promoting that to children. All right, children, go listen to NoFX The Decline. It's going to get your head right. All right, children. And you're going to go and listen to Paul Stamets. He's going to teach you about mycelium networks. It's going to make you a more well-rounded individual, children. All right? That's your homework assignment. All right. That's all for this story. I'm done with this story now. This was the hardest one to read. I'm over that hurdle. And now we can get into more fun stories. Hopefully, at least. Because it's hard for me to judge any of this because I don't know. Some people might think this is my best story. I don't know at all what people will like and what people will question. I just think this is reading this today was very, very hard for me. It was the hardest one so far, just to read out loud. As a screenwriting experience, this was the most difficult by far. Tomorrow is going to be fun. Tomorrow's another fun one. Even though it's 74 pages, so I'm going to be reading almost like 40 pages at a time, but you'll see how much easier I can get through tomorrow because one of the main rules of screenwriting is you want plenty of white on the page, meaning don't have these overly descriptive paragraphs explaining every little thing. As I'm doing with my commentary, you're not writing a novel or a short story. You're just painting a scene, then putting the dialogue, painting a scene, the action, what are these characters doing as they're speaking. And I'm not saying mine is perfect, but I think it's pretty good. There was really no other way I could have done it for the last one, the one I did today. Rinse and repeat part 1. I experimented with other ways I could organize the story, but in the end, I had to revise it so many times and add stuff to it that it just became a weird type of writing experience. Like some force was telling me, this isn't done yet. It's not good enough yet. It's not funny. It's not weird enough. So I kept going back, putting little things in there. The cross-dressing violin player, playing the violin on the Atlantic City Boardwalk, playing 8-Man, or Lola. Yeah, I did put Lola in there. Lola, Lola, Lola. And I really love that album. I didn't speak about the Kinks that much because I'm not a huge Kinks fan, but that's one of my favorite albums of all time. Lola Versus Powerman and the Moneygoround Part 1. It's up there for me. I attempted some other stuff, and my screenplay Jailbreak had another Kink song, Animal Farm, which is an amazing song. So maybe I'm a bigger Kinks fan than I even realize. But I really love that album. I think it's some of the best songwriting, really good production. Check out the Kinks. That's another homework assignment. But I'm not saying these things for any other reason but to give tribute to it. I want to thank the inspirations, like, genuinely. But moving on, when we get to the part 2 tomorrow of this rinse and repeat part 2, we're going to go down Manny's story now. When we left Jailbreak, Joe was asking Manny, as Manny had his gold medal around his neck in the alley, and I think they're sharing a cigarette maybe. And Joe's asking him, so what's your story? And Manny says nothing, he just laughs. Like, dude, what the fuck do you think? I'm homeless. But everyone's got a story. So rinse and repeat part 2 is exactly that. It's Manny's story. We're going back to Atlantic City again in the 80s. We're going to meet some political people, the mayor of Atlantic City. We're going to find out why the fuck Manny's homeless and what he does on the streets. We're going to have a weird experience tomorrow, but a much more organized screenplay in the old-fashioned way. That this could be a movie as well, the one I read tomorrow. It could be a political drama set in the 1980s of Atlantic City and this backdrop of political corruption and homelessness, which is just as relevant in America today than ever before. Maybe. Not that I know really, but you always hear about tent cities and, like, all over the fucking place. Not just in major cities, but yeah, it's a tough existence for a lot of people. So we're gonna get into that type of a mentality tomorrow. And just like I was talking about racial stuff, it's tough to write for homeless people. Like, I don't want to make fun of homeless people. So I don't think I do, because they're just people. Not every homeless person is the same. They all have different experiences and different reasons why they're homeless. Everyone's got a story to tell. That's kind of what the theme is for tomorrow. And we're going to learn Manny's story, dive really deep into his life and his path in life. And I'm looking forward to that one a million times more than the story I read today, because my brain is still like, yeah, it's a tough one to get through, man. If there's any plot holes, good luck. Good luck trying to figure them out, because if anything, you can justify stuff in an animation and clean things up more, because anything's possible in an animated story like the one today. You can manipulate events or add certain things to make it flow better, or to make the story just work. And maybe that's another reason this rinse and repeat part 1 evolved into an animation, because it's such a weird type of script. People told me Man and Deer was weird, but they were able to get through it and kind of easily understand what I'm going for. The few people that actually read it and gave me feedback. A couple people might have read this one when I first wrote it, and they were like, dude, this is terrible. You got to rewrite this. And I took that criticism maybe hard, but eventually, maybe the day after, I'm like, yeah, this is terrible. I'm not gonna lie to myself. If It's not like I had a focus group of people telling me what was good and what's bad with any of my scripts. I got to rely on my own, what I hope is unbiased judgment, so I could keep myself even keel and work out the kinks of any of my stories, because there's plenty of kinks to wrinkle the plot, to mix things up that don't make sense. So I'm sure even if I'm a part of this process, as an animation team is putting this together, they're probably going to want to know certain details, because the story might not be as clear in their head as it is in my head, since I'm the one that created this universe and whatever. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully, I say hopefully a lot when I close stuff. Hopefully, I didn't ramble to the degree where you don't understand the actual story and how it flows, because that's always the most important thing. Yeah, we did have Beverly again. Beverly was a character from Laurie's story. She was like the guardian angel story, who took the form of her son and led her into the sky in that magical ending of episode 2, Expanding Universe. So Beverly returns. She's an immortal, she's been around trying to guide humanity in the right direction. And she's a part of the stained glass window in that church in Lamb's dream. So you can call her an angel or an alien or whatever the fuck mythological creature that you want to believe in, but I guess because I grew up with like that idea of guardian angels and stuff, that's just how I kind of picture her, like that. And she's trying to lead. You could look at her almost like the Terminator, coming back to lead humanity to some kind of a more harmonious realization of civilization, of a civilization. It's almost like back to the free will thing. If she didn't save Lamb, and Lamb was about to drown in the floodwater, but then Beverly came in and saved him. If she didn't intervene in the human affairs, then this would have been a totally different story. And if this is the origin of this mushroom religion, that I want to continue this story based on that storyline, yeah, you could see there's a divine intervention at work in this story. So how do you deal with that? Even divine intervention, even if it's to save somebody, is it messing around with free will and the human order, because some higher power is guiding someone to a goal, and to get there you have to kind of manipulate events and play God, because it is kind of like a godlike entity, whatever you want to call it. Is that free will? Is that a contradiction of free will, or a betrayal of that, even if it's for good? It's kind of like an ethical question. If you can go back in time and prevent World War II, or prevent some assassination, or prevent whatever, would you do it? Or is that a betrayal of the human order and free will, because you're manipulating events based on your judgment? It's all weird. These ethical dilemmas are very strange. A lot of people take classes like that, and I guess if you're going to law school, you get into ethical debates about stuff. Utilitarianism. If you in my book, I mentioned utilitarianism with that movie, I forget what it's called, about the code breakers in World War II in the UK. They had the Enigma machine, and Benedict Cumberbatch, bunch. Sorry, man, I forget your name. That actor had the lead role, I think. He was able to break the Enigma, the German code, the Nazi code, with the Enigma machine or whatever it was called. And he could have used it to save his brother, whatever. I don't know if that story is even true. But he was like, no, I can't save my brother. If we do that, then the Germans will know that we broke the code. We have to wait for a better opportunity, whatever the movie was saying. Like, that's utilitarianism in a nutshell. If I was a philosophy professor, that's how I would describe utilitarianism. He's going to let his brother die or whatever it was in the story because he knew there was larger concern here. It's like the end of the world almost. And if he saves his brother, that's good. But, you know, it would change the course of World War II. The Germans would know that the Allied army are breaking their code and they would have to change their whatever. And who knows if that was the point of no return, where the Germans just couldn't recover from that type of event like that. Once they were able to break the code, it was just over at that point. So utilitarianism, those ethical debates, it gets weird. It gets really weird. The closest I got was taking like media law, learning about slander and libel and stuff like that. I did take a class on that. Not that I really remember what the requirements are for slander and libel. I don't remember any of that shit. But that's the closest I got to like ethical concerns, media bias, and even like we got into a little bit of Noam Chomsky in that class and more of that stuff of how media manipulates information. Media manipulation, it's actually a book, I think. But all right, I'm gonna stop. I'm rambling. Tomorrow's gonna be more. I promise it'll be easier for me and easier for the listener because it's a much more enjoyable reading experience. I'm not saying that part 2 is better than part 1. I'm just saying it's easier to read, less characters, and it's more accessible to a wide audience. It's another underdog story in a way. So it's connecting to Jailbreak. Tomorrow's title is Rinse and Repeat Part 2, but really, it's really Jailbreak Part 2 because it's that same universe of Jailbreak. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Tomorrow is a continuation of Marathon, not Jailbreak. Tomorrow could be termed Marathon Part 2 because it's the same universe as Marathon was. Atlantic City in the 80s, maybe a year after the 1984 Olympics. So it is a Marathon Part 2, and I'll get more into the details of that story and the themes and everything when I start reading it tomorrow.